My entitled homeless friends are refusing to leave my house and find somewhere else to live because after letting them in just to be nice and give them somewhere to stay, they have now taken full advantage of me as they refuse to find any other place that they can live. So now I'm considering calling the police because at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My fiance and I were letting two of our friends stay with us temporarily. For the sake of the story, we'll call my fiance Max and these two friends Sunny and Lester. All names are fake in this story. For a bit of context, they have both gotten kicked out early December. Where we live, it is very cold, and they told us they didn't have anywhere else to go. And when they said that, we told them that they had until January 20th. Well, fast forward to around close to the 20th, and we reminded them, where we then gave them until the 25th. And this was a bad decision on our part, but Max and I both have big hearts. But then beyond that, they asked for another week, which then turned into 3. And now we're looking at 2 months since they moved in, when they only said they would be a month. They have not paid us anything, and they have racked up all of our utilities to about $300. And this is more since they moved in because they are constantly leaving lights on. They've been gone a week and haven't said anything about coming back. Max has been texting Sunny trying to know when they're getting back because she said they were packing, but then they left for a week. Lester then took Sunny's phone and texted Max a nasty text message about always talking to Sunny and not him. But it's not like Lester can respond anyways because his phone has no service. And honestly, at this point, I'm done. I don't care how much I sound like a jerk, but I went into their room to get the dishes that they left, which when I grabbed all the cups and plates that they left in there, they were all covered in mold. Not to mention that the room smelled like the herb, if you know what I mean. And that's the other thing, they are constantly smoking that stuff, and we let them do that for a while on the porch. We thought they went to a friend's place, but it turns out they were smoking the herb inside my house. So I always smelled it, but Max didn't, so I thought I was going crazy. So anyways, I'm in their room and it was full of moldy dishes, as well as a can covered in the residue from the herb and cleaning out what they used to smoke the herb. Also, Max's baseball cards were in there, and those were cards that he left in the room hidden away in a dresser drawer. Now, I didn't look in, but Max did, and the baseball cards are basically worthless because you wouldn't know unless you looked at it, especially because they were raked out of the closet. So right now, I'm either going to be calling the police and trespassing them on our house because they have no standing here legally. They just refuse to leave, and I can't just not let them back in because they do have clothes here, and I do not want to get into any legal trouble with that. At this point, I'm just going to pack their garbage and leave it by the dumpster because them being here is affecting my relationship. And at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be changing the locks, I would get their stuff out of my house, and I would leave it on the curb. I would then text them and be like, don't come back, you're not welcome here. Because what you're describing sounds like a nightmare. And sure, maybe there is some kind of like legality associated with this, but in my opinion, I would make sure they never come back in there and even consult like a lawyer or someone to try and help you get this going. Like, these people are literally destroying your property in a way that is probably going to be irreparable. Like, think about it. They have mold on the dishes and the cups and plates, and that is not something that happens overnight. That means they probably had those plates in there since like December, the second they came into your house. And that legitimately puts a chill up my spine. That is so disgusting, it's not even funny. So if I was in your shoes, they would be gone and they would never be welcome back. I would say that they have to go and find some other accommodation because this situation is disgusting and you do not deserve to deal with this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled customer who used to be my friend absolutely loses his mind after I give him incorrect change, causing a series of events to happen in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 30-year-old female, and when I was going through a really rough time at home, I found a diner nearby that I could go drink coffee and chat with the old folks when I needed to escape. I got along very well with the owner. He reminded me of my Italian godfather that passed away. At the time, the diner was just a safe environment that meant the world to me. I made friends with many of the customers that sit at the counter, including a 90-year-old Korean war vet, a high school guidance counselor, a retired professional boxer, plenty of Vietnam vets, and a state trooper. I got to hear so many stories and make so many friendships that I still have today. Over the course of a few months, things got bad enough that I left home with my little brother with no place to go, and I needed a job that I could have cash immediately so that I could afford to keep us in a local hotel. Well, I begged the old man to hire me. It took a couple of weeks because I didn't want him or anyone, frankly, to know how desperately I needed that job. And not just for the cash, but with everything going on, I just wanted to be somewhere I felt safe. Well, he hired me, and I learned the menu and the computers within 2 days. I got along with even the most prickly of staff, and most importantly, the customers love me already. I was working my first really crazy busy shift around Valentine's Day, which is only my second time working on the counter and having an additional 6 booths to take care of. I was smiling ear to ear, making quick jokes with regulars, keeping my order tickets organized, and no one's food sat for more than 20 seconds. Frankly, I was completely overwhelmed at this time. Overwhelmed to a point that was absolutely awful. In fact, I was only smiling so I wouldn't start crying. But you know what? I didn't stop smiling. I never slammed anything. I never gave an attitude. I literally did nothing wrong. I saw the state trooper come in and I actually sighed in relief because this is my friend. I mean, I sat with him on so many busy days before I ever worked there. We talked about work and our families and cars and politics. So this really was my friend. He knew that I was brand new, so maybe I just assumed he'd be more understanding, especially since we both saw how chaotic and tense it can get in here. So I made a quick joke as he sat down, got his drink order, and he told me his order straight away. And then he told me he was in a rush. So I grabbed his drink, put his order in, and brought it to him the second it was in the window. I would say that maybe 3/4 of his coffee cup was full, but he was annoyed I hadn't topped off his coffee within 4 minutes to keep it super hot. Now, because he was in a rush, I said something like, "I'm sorry, Dave, I'm doing my best. Honestly, I'm a little overwhelmed." And I laughed and poured his coffee, then got back to running food and taking orders. He then waved me down to pay his check, and the total was $11.82. He gave me a $20 bill, and I gave him $9 back to save myself time from counting change. Well, when this happened, he lost his mind. He said to me, "I want my change back." I then looked at him and I said, "What? Wait, did you need quarters for the meter for work? Because your change was supposed to be like $8.18. I could change one of the dollars for quarters if you want." He then freaked out on me even more and said, "No, I want my proper change." I then said to him, "Okay, that's fine. I'll need one of those dollars back though. I was trying to round up for you." Now at this point, I could see he was legitimately angry and balling up his fists. He kept saying to me, "You can't rip me off." And I kept saying, "Dave, I wasn't ripping you off. I gave you more change than you were supposed to get so I could save some time. We sit together all the time. Are you joking right now?" Well, after that, he wouldn't speak another word to me. I didn't fight with him on the extra dollar, and I just gave him the extra 18 cents. He then sent a nasty letter to my boss calling me a thief, which is ridiculously offensive to me, and on top of that, he didn't come in for years. Well, he somehow got the impression that I moved away, and he started coming in again. I was on vacation and had a new schedule, and I worked a fill-in the other day, and he was there. And guess what? He wouldn't speak to me or even look at me. The little man jumped into his giant lifted pickup truck and burned so much rubber leaving that you could smell it in the restaurant. So I got his license plate and called it in to report it since he almost hit someone in the parking lot. Also, my car tires were missing all the things that screw onto the top of the tires to keep the air in when I left. Well, it turns out that Dave got arrested for domestic violence. He lost his badge and his weapon and has no contact with his kids anymore. Now, I'm not sure if I caused this or if I saved the public from a much worse reaction during a traffic stop, and I do feel terrible for his family, but boy, am I glad he can't legally carry a weapon anymore. So honestly, my biggest message to anyone else that's serving, don't fight over the small stuff. Speak softly and carry a big stick, because some people out here are completely crazy. Wow, this guy is completely out of his mind. Seriously, this is someone that you literally have sat next to and gotten to know really well. So for him to be like, "Oh, you're a worker now? Suddenly you're beneath me and I'm gonna act like a complete psychopath." Because that's literally what Dave did. This guy was completely off his rocker for acting that way, and honestly, I don't blame you for being like, "Wait a second, Dave, what's wrong? Why are you freaking out on me right now? I thought we were friends." I've worked in job situations like that before where like supposed friends kind of treat me different, all because I was working in some kind of customer service role. And it's honestly more confusing than anything else. You would think that someone who's calling you a friend would be like, "Oh, cool, you're working, let me not bother you." But instead, when you run into someone who's like, "Oh, you're a worker here," and they turn into like this monster, like really, it is so awful. So truly, to the original poster, I know where you're coming from, and I'm so sorry that you have to deal with that, because that honestly sounds like a complete nightmare, and I honestly don't blame you for being upset. My toxic parents have ruined every single relationship I've ever had by quite literally chasing off my boyfriends in a way that has ruined everything I've ever wanted. But now, my current boyfriend of 2 years is wanting to finally meet my parents for the first time, and I'm now worried that my parents are going to ruin this relationship as well, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was very shy during high school, and I didn't leave my house unless I had to. So as a result, I didn't get a boyfriend until my freshman year of college. After 7 months of dating my first ever boyfriend, I brought him to my parents' house for dinner, you know, just so they could meet him. I then had to step away for roughly 10 minutes to help my older sister with her baby, and when I came back, my boyfriend and my dad were having a full-blown fist fight. We managed to stop them, and my boyfriend stormed off without saying anything, while my dad insisted that my boyfriend was incredibly rude and disrespectful to him and my mother, and that a guy like that was no good for me because he would just end up doing the same thing to me. Now, I was shocked that my boyfriend could do such a thing because he has always been extremely sweet, and I've never met or heard of of anyone not liking him. But when I called him and told him what my dad had said about what had happened, all he did was laugh and say I can believe whatever I want, all before blocking me on everything. I was deeply disturbed by this, but my mom and sister insisted that he had just shown his true colors and said that my dad had saved me from an awful person. Now, I reluctantly accepted this, but something about it felt really off. I then met my second boyfriend several months later during my sophomore year. Part of me still felt my parents were the problem with my last boyfriend. So I managed to get him to wait an entire year before introducing him to my parents. From the moment she laid eyes on him, every word my mother spoke to him was dripping with fake friendliness and subtle jabs implying that she did not approve of him, which made him visibly uncomfortable. While we were eating dinner, she began asking me why I made the decision to date my boyfriend and asked about other guys and why they didn't work out. And for reference, some of the guys she asked about were completely made up. At this point, it was clear what they were trying to do, and I silently vowed to talk to my boyfriend and tell him how my parents were trying to sabotage me. Unfortunately, I didn't get that far, as my dad chipped in and demanded to know how a boy who couldn't support himself financially was ever going to support his daughter. Mind you, we were both juniors in college at this point, and both of us were working part-time jobs, so this question was really insane. Well, he responded by saying that he already had decided he wanted nothing to do with this family and was planning to break up with me when he got home, but instead he's just gonna leave now. Well, within minutes he was gone and I was blocked yet again. Now, my parents insisted they did nothing wrong and just wanted to test his confidence as any parents would, but I pointed out that this was the second boyfriend they chased away, and they didn't do anything to scare off my older sister's husband. I then went low contact with them after that, but fast forward a little bit, and I eventually allowed them to gaslight me into introducing them to my third boyfriend, whom I had met towards the end of my senior year. And guess what? Basically the exact same thing happened. I had made it through college unable to find a long-term boyfriend purely because of my parents. Now, I did meet my current boyfriend 2 years ago, and I have managed to avoid introducing him to my family thus far. If he ever brought it up, I would always have a ready-made excuse prepared to explain why it wasn't possible, which has been pretty easy because he usually only asks about them when planning for major holidays. I have fallen madly in love with him, and I hope to start a family with him one day, but he recently told me that he can't even allow me to move in with him until he's had the chance to meet my family. And right now, I do not know what to do, as I know my parents will make it their mission to break us up if they meet him. But based on his insistence on meeting them, I realize I can't put this off any longer. Usually, relationships end because of something one person in the relationship says or does, and it's incredibly unfair that I always end up being single because of things I cannot control. I want to tell my boyfriend about my parents and insist that meeting them is a bad idea, but I've listened in on some of his conversations with his friends, and the general consensus among them seems to be that a girl with a super dysfunctional family is a massive red flag and an indicator of what their married life would be like. So I come here asking, how do I approach the problem that is my parents without risking losing the longest relationship that I've ever had? If my parents end up being the cause of yet another breakup, I honestly would lose my mind. What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to their situation. Here's what they had to say. First off, I made this post about an hour before going to bed, but I woke up to quite a few comments here. So thank you to everybody who's helped me realize what I need to do. I've read through all the comments and I saw some reoccurring questions come up that I wanted to address. For starters, I am not fully no contact with my parents, primarily because they helped me a lot financially during college and when I first graduated and was looking for a job. When I went low contact with them, they constantly yelled at me for being ungrateful and said family does not turn on each other over minor disagreements involving boys. It sounds ridiculous when I type it here, but after months of this treatment, when I found myself faced with the decision to either tell them I forgive them so they'll pay for my dorm room or refuse to forgive them and have to move back home, I ended up caving. Now you might be asking, why didn't I stand up for my past boyfriends when I saw them being verbally attacked? And honestly, I don't know. I've never been allowed to talk back to my parents, so the thought of calling them out while we had company over is not something I realized I could do, I guess. My arguments with them after they ran off boyfriend number 2 and 3 were the only times I've ever come into full conflict with them in my entire life. So I will be going to my boyfriend's house today after work and I will tell him everything. I am terrified that he will still want to meet them, and just thinking about it has me shaking at my desk, but I think all of you are right. He has a right to know and make his own decision. Holy crap, your parents are awful people. Seriously, they chased off 3 of your boyfriends, and the first one being a fist fight. Like, what happened in those 10 minutes? Now, I want to address a few things you said in your update that honestly I would not feel bad about, because you said it best. You can either forgive them and they pay for your dorm, or you say, no, I don't forgive you, and then you move back home. Because guess what? If I was in that situation, I would be like, yes, I I forgive you. And I would just move on and play the game and just whistle past the graveyard. Because the alternative is not being able to go to college. It's like, okay, you want me to forgive you? I'll say that I forgive you. If that means my stuff gets paid for, then fine. So in that regard, I would not feel bad about that decision because you did what you needed to do. So with that in mind, I think you need to do the same thing with your current boyfriend. It sounds like this is a keeper and you really like him, but I think telling him everything that's going on, as well as the past 3 boyfriends you've tried to have, that really would be the best course of action. Because you said it yourself, he has a right to know and to make his own decision. And I don't agree with that sentiment of like anyone assuming that just because your family's weird, that somehow means that you're gonna be a bad partner. Like that is complete baloney in my opinion, and I just don't believe that. Because I've seen people who have had really chaotic home lives who end up being normal partners and having a really good marriage or relationship or whatever. So yes, your parents suck big time. They have literally stifled your growth when it comes to having a relationship, and I honestly don't blame you for trying to hide your boyfriend away from these people. My ex-colleague screwed me out of 70% of what he owed me for a job I completed for him. So I got some revenge by returning the favor in a way that he will truly never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was back in 2010 when Facebook was the de facto social media. I'm a content writer and I was in between jobs. An ex-colleague reached out to me and said that he was making a corporate film and needed a script writer. So I jumped to the offer, although I regret that we only did an oral agreement on the payment amount. So I submitted the first draft, and then he pointed out 1,000 reasons why he didn't like it, so I did a second and then a third draft. But he just kept rejecting it, even though magically the text had been already translated to our native language and was being used in production. So I put my foot down and I said no. First, pay me the full amount for any more revisions. Well, he stopped communicating after that, and I realized that I'd been taken for a ride. Eventually, his film was complete, and I sent him a long text message bashing him for breaking my trust. So, purely out of guilt, he paid me 30%, saying that's what my work was worth. A few months later, I got a job at a big corporation that used to hire production houses to make documentaries about its philanthropic work. I had absolutely nothing to do with that department, but I decided to use it as a carrot. I then put up a Facebook post about it. I had around 50 friends if I remember correctly, and I manually hid the post from 49 of them, so it was only visible to this one guy. Well, he took the bait and messaged me asking how to apply, and it was then that I gave him a piece of my mind and said that he had no integrity and I would not work with him. But after that, he took the bait, and he then promptly transferred me the remaining amount that he owed me. So I played along. The department in fact did hire companies annually, but it would always happen in the month of April, and we were in December at the time. So I fished out the form and I sent it for him to fill out. I told him the process is long and tedious, and he would not hear back before April. Well, to be honest, I never submitted his form, and when he called me back in April, I said, sorry, we had several applications and you were not selected. But all in all, it felt really good to get back at my former boss because he truly screwed me over. Wow, this former colleague is an absolute piece of garbage. Seriously, if you're gonna treat people like that, you better be ready for the consequences. Because in my opinion, what this colleague got was like the bare minimum of what they deserved. Because nothing pisses me off more than someone not getting paid what they're worth, especially when they're getting taken advantage of in the way that this guy took advantage of the original poster. Am I the jerk for threatening to sue my cousin's friend after she hit my car and has been refusing to pay for it? Because right now I'm honestly super frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female and I was at my grandmother's house last Friday when a friend of my cousin reversed into my car. I caught part of it on my phone camera, which showed her pulling away after hitting my car. I took photos of the damage, then messaged the cousin's friend to discuss how she was going to pay for the repair. She then decided to add me to a group WhatsApp call instead of replying privately. In the group call, I called her out using her name, the color, make, and model of her car, and her license plate, and I mentioned that I had video proof. She asked me what I expected from her, and I gave her 2 options: meet up the next Saturday and exchange insurance, or pay $2,500 in cash. She expressed concern over using insurance due to rate hikes and said that she didn't have the cash. I then offered to let her put a credit card on file at the shop, and I said I would have them cap the charges on her card at $2,500. And honestly, not surprising enough, she didn't like that either. My final offer was to tell her that she had till Thursday, meaning today, to notify me of what she wanted to do. If I didn't hear from her by that point, I would file a police report and pursue a small claim suit. She then tried to counter by saying the damage was from a previous incident, but I reminded her that I had proof from the shop that was completed 3 years ago and timestamp photos from earlier in the day of both cars being undamaged. Well, after this entire ordeal, my cousin is very upset about how I handled the situation, saying that I embarrassed his friend by confronting her in front of her friends and that I should have offered a payment plan. So anyways, am I the jerk for threatening to sue her in front of people who were strangers to me? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This person literally hit your car, you have proof that they hit your car, and now they're trying to be like, oh, I can't do any of this. Like, what is going on? They are clearly at fault. They know they're at fault, and they're trying to like dodge the situation. So you have every right to be like, listen, either pay for this, give me your insurance, or I'm going to the police. Because what's really happening is this friend really hopes that you don't say anything and you just let this slide. They know for a fact they messed up and that they're in hot water. And sure, they're worried about their rate being hiked up, but it's like, are we being serious right now? You're literally at fault for hitting someone else's car. You have to do the right thing or at least pay for the damages. You can't honestly expect them to be like, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. Because I don't know about you, but I don't have just like $2,500 just sitting around waiting to be used for my car. That's a lot of money and I don't care who you are. So no, this person was being difficult, they were being weird, and they're making this process harder than it needs to be. Because I think you know for a fact that they would never follow along with any payment plan you give them. Because the options you gave them are completely reasonable. And if they can't follow them, then honestly, that's their fault and not yours. My entitled parents are forcing me to change my daughter's name, and I could not be more upset. My entitled father called a couple of days ago and demanded that my daughter's name have my maiden name. For context, I'm ethnically Filipino, but I am a second-generation immigrant, as I immigrated when I was 6 years old. Filipino tradition is such that the child's middle name must be the mother's maiden name. For example, if my mother's maiden name was Smith, my middle name would be Smith. My daughter had just graduated high school, and my parents received a picture of her diploma. When they looked at the photo, they realized that I did not have their last name or maiden name on it, and they were very upset. Given that me and my husband are culturally American, but ethnically Filipino, my husband being half Filipino, we decided to give her a new name for her middle name and have her hold her father's last name. My entitled father complained and demanded that I change her name. I told them we are Americans and we live in America, therefore we will use what is culturally appropriate. He told me he does not care about the American way and that I am turning my back on the right way, which according to him is the Filipino way. My daughter is already 18 years old. I can't legally do anything regarding her name anymore. I had told him that, but he yelled and demanded that I must get it done. Not my daughter, but me. And I better do it or else. Personally, I have a myriad of reasons why I don't want my daughter to have my maiden name. A lot of issues including insurance as well as schooling, and even inheritance could also be on the line if she were to change her name. And even more importantly, she doesn't want a different name. My daughter outright said no, and both my husband and I agree with her. Later that night, she called them and told them, very nicely at that, stating quite plainly to them that she will in no way change her name. The only reason she would is if she gets married in the future. My entitled father threw an absolute fit on the phone, and she just ignored him and hung up. They haven't spoken to me since. I want to talk to my parents again, but if they're going to throw a fit over a name and continuously be upset, especially over a name they knew about, then I will cut ties. I honestly hope they get their act together. How weird can you possibly get, to be completely honest with you? Because they knew about this middle name issue for like, what, 17 years? Unless somehow they were just not involved or didn't know anything about this kid for what, 17 years? Why are you cherry picking this issue now of all times? No one is beholden to any type of tradition. If you want to break tradition and do your own thing, then by all means do it, in my opinion. The fact that this entitled father is acting so crazy towards this and trying to force this kid to change their name is just really stepping over the line, in my opinion. This kid is 18 years old. She can decide what she does and doesn't want to do with her well-being. And if she decides that she's not changing her middle name, well then guess what? There's nothing you can do about it. So good for them for standing up for themselves and for standing by their daughter's decision, because this family does not need this kind of energy in their life. My boyfriend has issues with my male friends, and I'm honestly not sure what to do about it. So I'm a 27-year-old female and my boyfriend is 28, and he has issues with me having male friends and hanging out with them. I let him know everything about them. I am always happy for him to join me when meeting them, and I am always transparent, reachable all the time I am out. I don't drink, so there's no chance of me doing something silly. I don't usually hang out with male friends one-on-one late into the evening, but I do often meet them after work, so between 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock. Sometimes I will organize big gatherings, which may go late into the night, and most of the time, it's just mainly guys, just because I have always had more male friends than female friends, despite having put effort to change things. The past several months, my boyfriend has been very busy, so he cannot join me, but he usually does not like hanging out with my friends much anyways. Most of my friends that I tend to meet one-on-one, I have known for quite a long time, so we essentially respect each other and have each other's back. I won't hang out one-on-one with the new guys I have met unless it's for some kind of sporting event. So I'm kind of wondering, is this common among other men? I am a very extroverted person, and I would love to have more female friends. And usually when a male friend of mine gets a girlfriend, I tend to try and make that girl my friend as well. I am not sure what else I can do to make my boyfriend feel comfortable, and I am not sure why he has these issues with my male friends. I have asked him to explain, but he doesn't really say much besides, if you are this type of girl, I don't think we can work out. I don't get what type of girl I am and why having male friends and hanging out with them in any way defines my value as a woman. What should I do? It sounds like your boyfriend is very insecure and he's being very toxic. If he really has such a problem with you spending time with these guy friends, then he would have the common decency of getting to know them and being there with you when you do hang out. From the sounds of it, you've invited him multiple times, but he just hasn't done the things necessary to make himself feel comfortable. In my opinion, I think men and women absolutely can be friends without there being any kind of ulterior motive. It's completely possible, and it is 100% something people do all the time. But for him to assume that, oh, because she's with male friends, that must mean she's cheating on me, is just really toxic on his part. It would be different if these guy friends were openly flirting with you, then I think it would be a problem, obviously, and you would definitely need to cut off those relationships. But if these are just normal platonic relationships, then there's nothing wrong with that. And I think your boyfriend needs to put a little bit more effort into trying to understand that instead of just having this mentality of, oh, she's going around behind my back, when clearly that is not the case. My boyfriend doesn't think he should have to treat me kindly in our relationship, and honestly, I'm at a loss for words. I'm a 22-year-old female, and my boyfriend is also 22, and we have been dating for 8 years. Recently, we have been arguing a lot, and I decided to have a talk with him about how I've been feeling. He expressed to me that he is upset that we have not been intimate as much as we used to, and I told him it was due to how he treats me emotionally. I said I have a hard time feeling that attraction when he treats me so poorly. He then told me that he doesn't feel like he can treat me kindly and with respect until I start being intimate with him again. I tried to explain to him that I think kindness should come first, but he disagrees. He says that apparently for men, being intimate is 50% of the relationship. So if we aren't going to be intimate together, he can't treat me right. I feel that intimacy should be because of that emotional attraction. I told him he treats his friends with kindness and obviously doesn't expect any of that from them, but he said it's different. I just don't think being kind to your girlfriend should come with a price, and he is starting to make me feel like that's all I'm ever good for. He essentially told me that he doesn't feel like he wants to solve any of my issues I have in the relationship, which is almost entirely about just him treating me better. That is, until we solve his problem about me not being intimate enough. This is all honestly a very new problem for me, and not something I've ever dealt with before. I could really use some advice in this situation, as I'm not sure where to go with this. What should I do? Your boyfriend sounds really manipulative. I would personally, if I was in your situation, dump him fast. This is a major red flag. He's treating you like garbage as a way to get what he wants. And it is absolutely ridiculous for him to say that most men feel this way. That is not how most men feel. This guy is an anomaly. To treat your girlfriend like this, all because she's not being intimate with you, is incredibly disturbing. And in my opinion, you can do so much better than this garbage. It sounds like he's made his position very clear that he's not going to treat you better unless you do certain things with him, and that is unbelievably unfair and toxic. Kindness and love and generosity should be the first thing on the forefront of any relationship, in my opinion. And if this guy doesn't want to do that, then honestly, I would cut your losses and find someone who will. My boyfriend of 9 months is still good friends with his ex-girlfriend, even though he's never told me about her. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for about 9 months now. We met online through gaming, and we are now living together. Most of my boyfriend's friendships are online friends he plays video games with, which is very similar to me. Before me, he was in another online relationship, and after breaking up, they stayed really close friends, and they also shared the same friend group. I knew about her, but I never met her. I only ever met some of the people from this friend group, but that was all before me and my boyfriend started dating. A few weeks before we started dating, my boyfriend had a big falling out with his friend group. From what I've gathered, I know it was because of his ex, and it pretty much seemed like it was because of jealousy and other really petty reasons. I also think there are some details about this that I'm not aware of. of. Either way, this caused my boyfriend to distance himself from the group and her because he said it was very toxic and he wanted to take a break from it. I always encouraged him to work things out with his friends eventually, and I was excited to meet them whenever he felt comfortable around them again. He said he would contact them when he was ready, but at the moment, he said he did not want to, nor did he feel the need to. Many months go by, and my boyfriend and I eventually meet up and move in together. He still expressed no plans to reconnect with the friend group for a little while still. After a month or so, I found out that he had reconnected with his ex, but he had not yet told me about it. He said he messaged her after she had unblocked him and they were catching up. The things he said to her while doing so is where my problem began. In the months that passed from him falling out with his friend group, all the way till then, my boyfriend's life had changed semi-drastically. He had uprooted his life and moved to my country to live with me and get a job here, something that was quite a big deal. When catching up with his ex, however, he specifically went out of his way to avoid mentioning me, saying he was in my country but staying alone at a hotel, and saying that the reason for wanting to move here was simply because he wanted to try something new. I was never mentioned, and neither was the fact that he was in a relationship. I found it strange since this was someone he, multiple times in the past, referred to as his closest friend. So why would he keep such details from her when trying to reconnect? I also found out about the whole thing as an accident, which further hurts my feelings because I did not see why he felt the need to hide it from me. All of this obviously upset me, and I accused him of not being serious about me and lying to me about his intentions. I may have overreacted, but the whole thing made me feel very insecure. We talked it out, and his reasoning was that he didn't want to be that close to her and that he did not feel comfortable sharing private things about his life to these people anymore. I could see where he was coming from, so we made up and moved on. Time went on, and eventually he reconnected with most of the people from the friend group while still keeping them at a distance. The past incident had been on my mind a lot, and it kept giving me a bad feeling, so a couple of times I couldn't help but ask him if he had or would ever mention me to them, which he hadn't. One of the times it turned into a small argument because he got annoyed that I was still bringing it up because he did not understand why I cared so much, and he thought I was accusing him of doing it intentionally. He said he found it awkward to bring it up out of nowhere, and again, he wanted to keep his life private. While I could understand that, I also realized that this was more important for me than for him, and we agreed that if it came up naturally, he would say it. I didn't ask for him to announce me or anything like that, but when asked about his life and the things he mentioned doing and the places he's going, instead of saying he did it all alone, just say that it was with me, his girlfriend, which is true. I considered it an easy request and said it would do a lot to reassure me, and he promised he would do it if it came up. Fast forward to now, and I know he still has not mentioned me to anyone he is talking to. It has been around 4 to 5 months since he initially contacted his ex. The only person I know he has told was one friend he told a long time ago, and she was an older friend who was separate from the group. I can accept that with some of his friends, the topic never really comes up since they speak very rarely and mostly about games. But when it comes to his ex, I cannot understand it. They have gotten a lot closer and seem to be speaking very regularly, sometimes whole days at a time. I'm assuming they're almost back to being as they were before falling out, minus spending time in calls and playing games together. When I ask him why he doesn't do that with her or anyone from the group anymore, he just says he does not want to. I know they discuss their lives a lot and that he is helping her out often. He even sometimes mentions to me what's going on in her life as well. He is also sending her pictures of things he's been up to, so I can only assume he is talking about his life and not being too private. He already told her that he moved from before, so privacy doesn't seem like a good excuse to me anymore since so much time has passed. And that's the part where I am pretty confused about why she has absolutely no idea I exist in his life, and neither does any friend of his that know her. Lately, I have been wondering if his reluctance to speak to them in calls, like before, is because there's usually no way to do it without me being in the same room, which would risk revealing that he is in fact not alone. Why on earth is he hiding me? I basically have no idea how to go about this situation the best way. We never agreed to have any kind of secrecy. I thought after agreeing to do it, he would end up, well, doing it. I'm pretty hurt that he seems to not want to, and it has been hurting my self-esteem. I would love to have someone else's perspective on the situation. Maybe it is not as serious as I am making it out to be, or maybe I need to be more patient. I know I will eventually have to bring it up again, but I don't want to come off as the possessive and jealous girlfriend who won't let her boyfriend have his privacy. It feels almost humiliating, basically begging for what I would consider a pretty easily completed request. But I'll admit I do not understand his perspective fully, so I am hoping someone could help me out. I know it's not a big deal, it just feels so out of place with everything else in our relationship. And honestly, it really bothers me. He is very loving and kind and seems super committed to me. We spend a lot of time hanging out together with my friends, and he says he enjoys that they know we are a couple. We have met each other's parents, and we both know that we're serious about each other. Usually, I talk to him about all of my feelings, but I am just really confused about his decisions surrounding this, and I wouldn't want to cause problems for no reason. I would really appreciate someone else's perspective on the situation since it's causing me so much stress. I think there's a big difference between keeping something private and keeping something a secret. Keeping something private would be him saying, "Hey, I have a girlfriend," and then literally leaving it that, not airing dirty laundry and not really sharing anything else. It wouldn't be a surprise that he has a girlfriend, but other than that, the details can be very vague, and that's where you leave it. But keeping it a secret would him being like, "Hey, I moved to this other country by myself, and I do all these things by myself." He's not even mentioning your existence. In his eyes, you're a secret, when in reality, you're supposed to be his partner. And if I was in your shoes, I would definitely see this as shady behavior. I really hope this is nothing shady and that he's just being an idiot. But there's no reason for him to lie to his friends, as well as get super close to his ex-girlfriend, with them all assuming that he is still single. That, in my eyes, is just not a good look. It makes it seem like he is still on the market, when in reality, if you do love each other as much as you're saying, he should be more open and say, "Hey, I have a girlfriend." He doesn't have to go into the specifics about it, but he can at the very least make that known, especially in front of his ex-girlfriend. He is talking to his ex-girlfriend without mentioning this lady at all. That is a big deal breaker in my opinion, and a major red flag. It's almost like he's setting things up to try and cheat on her. I really hope that's not the case, but this all seems super sketchy from my side of this. And I think you're asking a question that you already know the answer to when you're asking, why is he hiding me? Worst case scenario, he plans on cheating again and he doesn't want people to know that he's in a relationship. I really hope that's not the case, but honestly, from what you've described, it kind of seems like it's leading in that direction. So I think having an honest heart-to-heart with your boyfriend will really go a long way in this case. Because if you two really do love each other like you say you do, then this should be easy to work out. Otherwise, this might be a deal breaker. My family has lost all of their trust in my girlfriend, and I don't know what to do about it. I'm a 33-year-old male and my girlfriend is 37. We moved to an apartment in her city a couple of months ago after a 3-year long-distance relationship. And ever since then, everything started going downhill. She had to be away from our house for many hours since she had some family problems to solve, and I had to stay by myself for the longest part of the day as I didn't really make any new friends at the time in this new city yet. I started getting a little bit depressed and homesick, and I felt that she didn't understand me. A few days ago, her dad was diagnosed with a heart condition, and he needed to have open heart surgery. She became very depressed, aggressive, and I couldn't have a normal conversation with her. The surgery was scheduled for yesterday, but I had to go back to my city for a couple of days before the surgery as I had to visit my brother and sister, who came from overseas, which I hadn't seen for months. I went back to the apartment on Saturday just to have her accuse me that I wasn't there for her. She started insulting and cursing me and my family for no particular reason, and I asked her to stop, but she wasn't willing to. So as a result, I took some of my stuff and drove back to my family in the middle of the night just to try and give her some space. About an hour later, she drove to my parents' house as well, and she woke everybody up at 2 in the morning just to make a big scene and to accuse me that I hurt her in some way, which is a complete lie. After she made this scene at 2 in the morning, she left. The next day, she texted my mother to apologize to her, and she had also told her about her lie. She apologized to me as well and promised me that she will never have this extreme behavior again. But after this, my parents lost all of their trust to this woman, and they suggested me to never return back to her. My brother and sister also have given me some valid points about staying away from her, such as that she might have some serious issues, and I will be miserable for the rest of my life if I stay with her. Although I believe that most of the things my family said are true, I want to give her a second chance, as I really love her and care for her. But I'm afraid that I might lose my family, which I really don't want to do. I'm really heartbroken, and she is too, but I really don't know what to do. If I was in your shoes and my partner just accused me of domestic assault that never happened, I absolutely would break up with her immediately. There is no way on earth I would give that a second chance. That is an absolutely unforgivable red flag in my opinion. She should not get away with lying about you in a way that is so detrimental towards your future and your character. Like, what she did is absolutely unacceptable. I don't care what's going on in her life. To come to your house at 2 in the morning and make such false accusations is incredibly crazy and not something you should ever deal with. Your family is 100% right in this situation. If you go back to her after this, you are crazy and you really will lose your family. If I was a member of your family and I saw this happen at 2 in the morning and you still went back to her to give her another chance, I would think less of you and probably not talk to you again, because this woman is going to ruin your life. Like, literally almost everything else is forgivable in my eyes, but the fact that she tried to accuse you of assault is absolutely crazy to me. So in my opinion, I think the writing's on the wall, and if you were smart, you would get away from this crazy lady while you still have the chance. An entitled Karen gets so angry that she threatens me over a parking spot, and I could not be more shocked. So I want to preface this by saying that I work in a retail outlet. For those who don't know what that is, it's basically an outside mall. Anyways, parking where I work is always crazy. It's neck for neck for a good parking spot, and on busy days like today, I usually avoid the parking disputes and park in the parking garage, which is pretty far from my job. On my lunch break, when it slowed down, I decided to move my car and park it in front of the store I work at. No biggie, I get a parking spot and start enjoying my break and call my significant other. After hanging up with my significant other, the parking space in front of me opens up as an SUV leaves, so I pull into the spot. However, when I pull in, I guess there was a car sitting and waiting to take the spot. I didn't originally see it due to the fact that the SUV blocked my line of sight. When I pull forward, the entitled Karen sitting in her car goes absolutely insane, screaming that I need to move my car and that what I was doing was illegal and so on. So being a little petty, I stand my ground and I refuse to move. Now, if this entitled Karen had been nice and asked me to move, I would have moved for them absolutely no problem. But instead, she decided to go insane and scream at me, so I stood my ground. Not to mention there are about 5 open parking spots around me that she could have easily taken, including the one I had just pulled out of. I tried to ignore her, hoping she'd simply give up and leave, but boy was I wrong. She approaches my car, screaming at me at the top of her lungs through my window, demanding that I move and insisting again that what I just did was illegal. Again, I was ignoring her, hoping she'd give up, leave, and take another of the 5 or so parking spots around me. At one point, I rolled down the window, asked her politely to leave me alone or I will contact the police. Instead of being polite and backing off, she decided to start cursing at me, as well as inviting me to call the police. She simply didn't care, since what I was doing was illegal. Then, as I'm waiting for her to stop, she starts banging on my car window, once again screaming at me and threatening to put her hands on me. As I continue to ignore her, she goes around to the passenger side of my car, opens my door, and sticks her head in, screaming and yelling at me. At that point, I pulled out my phone and contacted the police, out of fear of what this crazy entitled Karen would do to me. When she sees I'm actually calling the police, she gets in her car and leaves, but not quick enough for me to get her license plate. Mind you, this lady was with her friend or whatever, and her kid was in the back seat, which you know is a fantastic precedent to set for your child. The police finally show up and I give them the rundown. As I'm talking to the police, this entitled Karen shows back up again, and the other officer goes to talk to her. I told the police that I wanted to press charges. He tells me that even though I could, it likely won't get pushed through, considering the police weren't there to witness it. I also didn't record it and I had no witnesses. I was upset about this, but as I continue talking to the officer, this wonderful lady approaches us and lets the officer know that she witnessed this entitled Karen try and enter my car. The officer then says I have more of a ground to press charges, so I decide to do so. I don't speak to that entitled Karen again, but she really dug her own grave by coming back, because even with a license plate number, they can't prove it was the woman. But luckily, she came, and I have a witness. So after work, I'll be heading to the police station to fill out the paperwork. I absolutely love to see justice come to an entitled Karen who absolutely had it coming. Who in their right mind would freak out like this over a parking spot, especially when there's other spots available that they could take? I cannot imagine someone banging on my car window and then trying to get into my car and then successfully getting in my car just to yell at me over a parking spot. You must have some serious issues in your life to treat someone else like this over a parking spot. Go to therapy, lady. Overall, I'm really glad that this lady had a witness on the sideline that watched this all go down. That makes this story so much sweeter because now she's got proof and now she really will have grounds to press charges. So congratulations to this original poster. Because of you, one less Karen is now going to terrorize the world. And for that, we give our thanks. How can I handle my really difficult neighbors? I lived in my home for a couple of years now, and I have great neighbors. It's a quiet community where everyone seems to respect everyone else. Recently, new renters have moved in, and at first they seem really nice. However, that fell apart when one day I was coming home from work and saw them pulling into my parking space. I pulled up behind them, not blocking them in or doing anything that could be seen as offensive, and said, "Hey, how are ya?" I didn't get a response, so I said, "Do you mind parking in your spot because that one is actually mine?" She had a major attitude, and her and her friends jumped out of the car like I did something wrong. She tried to tell me that she could park there, so I assumed that her landlord didn't inform her of her own parking spaces. So I pointed to her spots and said, "Those right there go with your house. No one else will park there." She actually said, "I'll move this one time, but I won't move again." I informed the HOA because I had a feeling that this would be an ongoing issue. The HOA said they would inform them. Ever since then, she hasn't spoken to me and has parked in my spot several other times. Each time, I've reported it to the HOA. Now, whenever she sees me, she makes a point to say something nasty and rude to the people that she is with. And tonight, I heard a racial slur. On a personal level, I'm very easy to get along with. But if she parks in my space, I have nowhere else to park without causing the same problem for another neighbor. And worst of all, each time, both of her parking spaces have been completely open. I'm truly not trying to be difficult or petty, but my spaces are included in the deed and are literally my own spaces. How can I peacefully handle this situation? I'm not trying to have any issues with the neighbors, but it seems that she is doing this on purpose. What should I do? I want to say first and foremost, yes, they are absolutely doing this on purpose. They're being nasty because you called them out on it, and I guarantee you that this lady is the same type of person who has never been told no about anything in their life. You've informed the HOA, you've told them verbally, "Hey, you can't park in my spot," but guess what? They're still doing it. So, in my opinion, if I was you, the next time I see their car parked in my spot, I'm calling a tow truck and I'm having it moved. You have a distinct claim over that parking spot specifically, and they do not deserve to sit there and park their car. You've tried to be polite, but they've escalated this after they made some terrible comments about you. So in my opinion, let's take this to another level. And I can't think of a better way for this to be escalated than getting her car towed away from your space. Another option is to try and record every situation in which she parks her car in your spot and then send these complaints every single time to the landlord. Record everything you can, whether video or audio, and any interactions you have with her, even just from a distance, record that lady at all costs. There's a very good chance if you record all of this stuff, you might be able to get her evicted, or at the very least have some kind of defense if she tries to escalate this further, as proof that this lady has been targeting you specifically. There's a good chance that you're not the only one being treated like garbage by this lady, and there might be a good chance that the landlord has already gotten complaints from other tenants. So they're probably just looking for a good excuse to get them out of there, and you might be the very person to help them do it. So record everything and don't let a single detail get past you, because pretty soon, if you do this enough, you might find yourself with better neighbors. I am having a hard time coping with my boyfriend's poor time management, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. I've been dating this guy for around 9 months, and he has very poor planning, and he's very forgetful in general when it comes to everything. He is one of the worst people I've ever met about being on time. He is rarely on time, and I mean more than 30 minutes late consistently, and there's always a new excuse each and every time. He also forgets about our dates. In April, he completely forgot about our date that we planned the day prior. Last week, he made plans with someone else and went to bed and forgot again. I was hurt, but I let it slide after he apologized. The last straw was a couple of days ago, where we said said we would go out together at noon. I got all dressed up and everything, then texted him asking if he was ready, and I got nothing in response. At 3 in the afternoon, I got a text message telling me that he just got up and that now he's ready, as if I was just patiently waiting there for him for 3 hours on my one day off. Needless to say, I felt disrespected and incredibly frustrated. I told him I didn't want to go anymore. He sent me more messages like, "I miss you," which I honestly just didn't even bother opening. He just doesn't act like it's a big deal and it's whatever. When I talked to him asking him why he left me waiting, all he could say was, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And that's it. He hardly ever calls me or visits me. We only talk once or twice a month. So that honestly makes him blowing me off even worse. It takes him an entire day to respond to my messages. And it honestly seems to be getting worse with time. And I feel if he continues, I'm going to get resentful. It makes me feel like I'm the only one putting in any effort. I'm kinda old-fashioned, but I was raised to view being punctual as very important. And being on time is a matter of pride. Like if I say 10 o'clock, I will be there at 9:45, as long as there are no emergencies. I find being late very embarrassing and shameful, and forgetting about your significant other when you made plans is just really hard to understand for me. Are we just too different? What should I do? It is completely inappropriate for him to leave you waiting for 3 hours just for you to go out on a date. You both made plans, you both said, "Hey, we're gonna be here at this time," and then he completely goes back on it and betrays that trust and completely forgets. In my opinion, there's really no good excuse at this point. And in my opinion, time management is a big deal when it comes to relationships. I'm sure he's probably lovely around you and he's very loving and kind and probably meets your needs in a lot of ways. But if he is not reliable and dependable when it counts, how on earth could you imagine making this work? I just don't see a good future if this guy is going to continue to act like this. But even worst of all, it seems like he can make plans with his friends, but he can't make concrete plans with, his girlfriend, which in my opinion is just completely inappropriate. That's the one person you really do need to put first and say, "Hey, I'm going to prioritize my plans with her and make sure that I get there on time." If I was in your shoes, I would make it very clear to my boyfriend that, "Hey, you need to change because this is putting a strain on our relationship." Because I do not think it's unreasonable for you to expect him to be on time and to consider your time as well. My boyfriend needs space after a huge argument, but still wants to keep in contact daily. So my partner and I have been seeing each other for nearly a year. My partner's 31 years old and I'm a 30-year-old female. Long story short, we've gotten into a series of arguments in the last month due to our struggles communicating. We both played a role in the miscommunications, but it hit a tipping point where I blew up and said some things that really hurt him. I didn't call him rude things or say things intentionally to hurt him. I was just feeling insecure and questioning his love and care for me, as he's not a very communicative guy. We've had several conversations since then and are finally at a point where we're able to calmly talk about our feelings, needs, and boundaries, all without falling into the cycle of blaming each other. The problem now is that because of the hurtful things I said, he says he needs a lot of space to process everything and decide if he can move forward. But he said he still wants to talk and text each other and wants to hang out still, but as friends. He has texted me at least once a day, every day in the last 3 weeks since our huge argument. He asks how I am, what I have planned, and all these other things. My question is, what do I do with this? We've both acknowledged our roles in our last conversation, and I have apologized to him multiple times for the things I've said and explained the root of my words. I talked to him about the steps I've been taking to make sure I never behave like that again, but he is still on the fence on if he can trust that this cycle won't happen again. We're both in therapy, and this incident has shown me I need to further improve my communication skills and work on continuing to improve myself. What do I do now? How do I navigate this? I'm torn between setting boundaries and cutting contact until he makes his decision to either end our relationship or start fresh together and move forward, or giving him space while still showing him my support and commitment to him, fixing our issues and doing better. I am 1000% certain I will never behave that way ever again. I miss him and I love him very much, beyond words that I can describe. Now that we've laid everything out in the open, I'm sure we have a fighting chance to rebuild our relationship and work on our communication together. I'm convinced that if we make it past this, I'm going to marry him. But am I uselessly holding out hope? I'm trying not to blame myself and give myself grace, but it's hard because because I feel like I ruined a good thing with my emotional outburst. I'm staying busy and tending to myself, but the sadness I feel is profound. What should I do? I think if you're working on yourself and you're both trying to move forward in the right direction, then I think you're doing everything you need to do. At this point, it kind of seems like the ball's in your boyfriend's court, and there's not much you really can do besides wait and try and be supportive of whatever decision he makes. It honestly sounds like things are going in the right direction for you two, so hopefully things work out and hopefully you can salvage your relationship, because it sounds like you're putting the work in. My girlfriend of 8 months broke up with me because her heart wasn't in it 3 weeks after me moving to her city. So my girlfriend and best friend of 8 months broke up with me out of nowhere, and I don't know what to do. My first relationship was a year long and broke up due to family pressure and other tangible reasons, and I grieved for 4 months when I met my current girlfriend. I rejected her at first as I wasn't ready for a relationship, but 2 months later, I realized she exceeded my first girlfriend in every single way, and we blossomed into an amazing relationship. I know everyone says you'll meet someone better, but I'm 28. I've gone on dozens and dozens of dates. I've met countless girls, but I've never met a silly, goofy, yet ambitious and smart, beautiful girl like her. I definitely sound like I'm putting her on a pedestal, but the connection we have is immeasurable. Before she met me, she was in a toxic relationship for a year, and she never thought she'd experience a love like she did with me. She even said she will try to find me in others, but doubts that she will be able to. And most importantly, she acknowledged she could be making a terrible mistake and regret it and come back later, but she has to do it right now. She says there's no specific reason as to why we're breaking up. She said that she just realized her heart isn't in it for the last 2 months, and it hasn't gotten any better. Basically, it all started with the fact that I was in a city 4 hours away, and she wanted me to move to hers before introducing me to her family. Eventually, though, I did just that after lots of applying, and that's when she started having panic attacks. She's always had mental health issues with anxiety and depression. That combined with this being the toughest semester of her master's degree, overall, I genuinely thought that she got cold feet. Also, we went on a supposed break for like 2 to 3 months when she realized that she wants a provider and someone who's ambitious in their career. While I always nagged her when we lived together, she has to pay 50% of everything and wasn't taking my career that seriously at the time. I think those 2 reasons are why she decided to dump me the most. Now I'm in a city 4 hours away from my family and friends, and I'm soon to be truly single. She asked me to stay friends because she would legitimately be depressed without me in her life, and we're still talking and sending memes to each other at the moment. But once she's done with exams this week, I'm meeting her one last time next week. She doesn't know it'll be the last time, but I'm telling her that I can't be friends with her and know the reasons that she dumped me, and that I will work and improve myself, and hopefully she comes back to a better man. I'm clinging on to hope that she'll come back. I feel it in my heart that she will. She had valid reasons to be scared of a future with me, as I wasn't being a man, but I've learned the lesson the hard way. Now I'm in a new city alone with nothing to lose and everything to gain. I hate to break it to you, but I think you're really avoiding reality right now, and that is that this relationship is over. She kicked you to the curb, and I think you need to move on. That's easier said than done, right? You two obviously connected together in a way that you haven't found before, and to that end, I'm so sorry that things didn't work out. But I think holding on to some irrational hope that she'll come back to you is only going to do more damage to you than good. I don't think she's going to be coming back to you. It's wishful thinking at best, and I think you need to start packing your bags, so to say, and find someone better in your life. My parents have come to visit me and changed everything in my condo without my consent, and now I'm really upset. In November of last year, I moved into a condo my parents own in the Midwest. I used to live with a roommate, but she moved out and left a ton of mess behind. And it's stuff that I was told not to mess with until my dad could fix it. When I first moved out here, they were okay with me not paying rent because I didn't have a real job yet. I got one in February and have been paying rent ever since on my own. I love my parents and they are good people, but they have recently come to visit me at their place. They gushed about how much they miss me and they couldn't wait to see me. My parents are very ridiculous and minimalistic. They like straight lines and bland decor. Since I lived here alone, I decorated my countertops, added colors and lights, all very tasteful. I went ahead and cleaned all Saturday, even though I knew it would never live up to their standards of cleanliness. When they walked through the door, there were barely any greetings and their faces immediately fell. The blinds weren't wiped down, the shelves had dust on them, and I used Windex instead of granite cleaner on the table. There was no happy rekindling because everything was wrong from the moment they stepped through the door. I know this is their place, and they have every right to feel and do as they please. They moved all my plants, replaced my pillows, rearranged my furniture, and threw away my decorations. And my mom wants to rearrange my closet. I know they are just trying to help, but it's draining me. I didn't ask them to do any of these things. I just wanted them to come by and just be with me. They claim they are doing this for me and want to make sure I'm set up before they leave to go back home. But I was okay before they came by. To add to this, my mom polices everything I eat. I had a cheat day and ordered Papa John's and got a cookie cake, and my mom tried to take it from me in front of me and told me I'd lose more weight if I didn't eat so much on the weekends. I diet 5 days a week and stay away from carbs. Her controlling nature and my dad being equally ridiculous has been taking a toll on my mental and emotional health. I never wanted anything to change. I work from home and barely have enough energy for output. When I apologize, they'll say, "We'll just leave early." But I don't want them to leave. I just wanted them to come and spend time with me and not change anything. But everything has changed. In fact, I cried silently in my car all because of this. I don't know why it's taking such a toll on me. I feel so bad and I'm just not sure what to do. It sounds like your parents not only don't know your boundaries, but if they do, they completely cross them. I can understand that you want them to come by to spend time with them. They're family, of course you do. But the fact that they went into your house and changed everything that you enjoyed and basically stripped away all the things that made you unique about your house is just really inappropriate. There is no good reason for them to have done that to you, and honestly, I absolutely would say something. This needs to be addressed. Overall though, I really hope you're able to talk to your parents about this and let them know that they crossed the line and that what they did in your home is inappropriate. An entire house full of entitled Karens want to tear up the home they're currently renting from, all because they're getting evicted. My husband and I, after 3 years, are finally able to purchase a home. We found the home of our dreams, but it was tenant occupied and their lease was expiring. The homeowner was getting older and wanted to sell the home instead of renting it. The tenants were given an 18-month notice to vacate the premises so he could list the property. He also gave the tenants the option to buy the house from him for $50,000 in monthly payments. The entitled Karens living in the estate said, "We don't want the responsibility of owning and fixing a home. We're just much more comfortable renting." They rented the home from him for 15 years, and they were offered the home at 1/8 the price we paid for it, as well as 1/12 of the value. Well, after 18 months, he listed the property, and we went under contract, giving 4 months until closing. 2 of the 5 roommates left, and the other 3 were a couple as well as their 21-year-old daughter. The inspector came after, giving them a 1-week notice, and they caused nothing but havoc. They trashed the fireplace and the entire home. They stained the floors and put holes in the carpet and the walls, and left the garden hose on so water gets in crawl spaces under the home. It was an absolute mess. But the inspector noted everything. But this is where the fun part begins. The tenants refused to pay their utilities and asked if the homeowner would extend their lease since it was their daughter's childhood home. The homeowner refused and instead showed them the contract as well as the damages. They complained that they should be entitled to be given the home since they rented it for so long, but the homeowner said, "Tough noodles." The tenant couple vacated when the homeowner showed them the eviction documents, but left their 21-year-old daughter behind. She requested that when we purchased the home, if we could be her roommates and put her on the title. We laughed and then recollected on all the damage they did and said no. She blamed us, stating we took her home from her and that it's our fault that she has to leave. I sympathized and said, "We totally understand it was your childhood home, but you had every opportunity to purchase it and you didn't." After a few weeks, 1 month before closing to be exact, the appraiser and the inspector came by and she barricaded herself in the master bedroom. After being given $50 from the homeowner just to bribe her out of the room, she left the home for the day and it was a complete mess. Clothing and trash piled everywhere, pizza boxes stacked to the ceiling, and the stench of rotting food made the inspector have to put on his mask. They finished their job and the homeowner had replaced and repaired everything on the list, totaling to about $52,000 worth of damages, except inside the master bedroom. The week before closing, the last tenant left, and we come to find out she already had another apartment for months, but just wanted to trash the place so we would back out. The homeowner hired professional cleaners, and it took 4 days to clean and sanitize that room alone. We just got the keys and discovered the last tenant had ripped drywall off of the master bathroom, put screws down the garbage disposal, and crushed the garage door opener when the previous homeowner reset the code. And right before this entitled Karen left the house, she left us a note saying she expects her security deposit back. And well, after all the damages she did, you can bet she's not getting a single dime. I think from here on out, anytime someone gets some bad news that they don't like, I'm gonna say tough noodles. This is quite literally every homeowner's worst nightmare. Can you imagine buying the home of your dreams, only to then have a house full of Karens running around and destroying your property? Thank goodness the people who are buying this house did not have to fix it up, and that it all fell on the homeowner themselves. I don't know if they did or not, but I'm sure, and I definitely hope, they hired a lawyer to sue these people for property damage. But thankfully, they have their house, and hopefully they will never have to deal with those entitled Karens ever again. My husband cheated on me and has now been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and to top it all off, his mistress is now pregnant. The title is literally self-explanatory, but for the sake of clarity, here's a little bit of background. My husband is a 38-year-old man and I'm 34 years old. We've been together for 19 years. We dated for 7 and we've been married for 12. We have 2 young children and another due in September. My daughter is 10 and my son is 8, and I'm 32 weeks pregnant. Like any other family, we had our share of fortunes and misfortunes. The last couple of years were particularly quite painful for us, as we both lost our loved ones due to COVID-19. He lost his elder brother and I lost my grandparents. Our struggle started during the grieving process. He berated me for grieving my grandparents while he grieved for his brother. While I understood that unlike his brother, my grandparents were able to live a full life and see loved ones grow, but that didn't make my pain any less. I lost my father when I was very young, and my grandparents were always around to help my mom and us. They were my family. I tried to have a conversation with him, but he just shut me off. He started being distant and quiet at home. I gave him space to grieve, but eventually it started impacting our lives quite intimately, if you know what I mean. This went on for 4 months. I suggested couples therapy to smooth things over between us. I was honestly so tired of initiating one-sided conversations with him. It would mostly be monologues with him merely nodding. Things started getting better between us, and then last September, he told me that he wanted another baby. After a lot of discussion, I gave in and we started trying. Since February, he started being distant again, and every time I tried to comfort him, he would just tell me that it's my hormones talking. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew something was off. I had this feeling that he was just hiding something. On one of the restless and sleepless nights, I saw his phone screen light up at 3 in the morning. He had changed his password, so I couldn't read the entire conversation, but I did see the notification that said, "We're pregnant," with hearts and kisses all over it. I confronted him the next day, and he angrily told me that I was apparently hallucinating and that he would never cheat on me. He hugged me and told me how much he loved me, and even cried that I didn't trust him after all these years. I then asked him who such and such was, such and such being the person I saw in his contacts last night, and he said he didn't know anyone by that name. He just told me that I was overthinking. He offered me his phone to check for messages, and conveniently enough, both the number, the name, and the message were not there. I reached out to one of his colleagues and asked her about the person. His colleague and I have known each other for a while, and our daughters are friends. She not only confirmed that there's a person by that name on his team, but she also told me that my husband has been on leave for a couple of days, and so has the other woman. She is 26 years old and works under him. When I threatened my husband that if he doesn't come clean, I will wreak havoc at his workplace, he finally confessed that he has been seeing this other woman and that she is pregnant with his child. My entire world crashed at that moment. I didn't know what to do and needed time to process things. He apologized, cried some more, and begged me to give him another chance. I asked him to move out and he complied, saying that he will give me some space and time. "Whatever you need, babe," were his exact words. I didn't want to take any rash decisions and wanted to focus on my pregnancy, my kids, and my own well-being. So I delayed any conversation of divorce or legal separation. But every day, I stumbled upon new pieces of information, such as when he convinced me to try and have a baby, all while he was already with that woman. He was spending some quality time with both of us. It honestly makes me sick to my stomach. I also found their chat backups on his email ID, and it is honestly completely filthy. I went no contact with him in April and told him that I needed time. He has been there for all of my doctor's appointments, even though I don't even acknowledge his existence while I'm there, while also being at his mistress's doctor's appointments as well. He said that he messed up and he wants to rectify his mistakes by owning up to it. Currently, he's living with his parents. Last month, my mother-in-law informed me that he has been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. He asked me to forgive him and to live his last days with him, but I can't even bring myself to look him in the face. I asked her to take my kids to see their father, and my daughter told me that the other woman was at daddy's bedside. I was completely furious. Apparently, she goes with him for his appointments as well. I hate her and I hate him. I am pissed, hurt, humiliated, and disgusted. I've been told that at this stage, he won't live long. On one hand, I want to forgive him. After all, he is the father of my children. He has been amazing all of these years, and he was the love of my life. On the other hand, the betrayal, the hurt, the humiliation, the disrespect, and anger is too much for me to handle. My friends and family believe that I should forgive him and let him live his last days in his own house. They feel that given his condition, I shouldn't drag this long because he doesn't have time. I have also been asked to befriend the other woman so that our kids can get to know each other. After all, they are half siblings. They say that I will regret it later if I don't reconcile with my husband right now. I am emotionally exhausted, and I'd like any suggestion that would make it easier for me to handle this situation with some semblance of grace. Should I just forgive him? How do I even do that? Should I ensure that my kids have a relationship with the other child? I don't think I can stand him right now, but do you think that my family is right and that I should bring him home? How do I let this go? Because I am honestly not sure whether I really can. What should I do? If I was in your shoes, I would have gotten a lawyer yesterday. Honestly, your husband is a piece of garbage. And yeah, I can kind of see both sides of this. I completely understand where your family's coming from when they're saying, hey, make amends while you got the chance, he's probably not going to live long. But on the other end of it, this guy blew up your family. He completely wrecked your home by going with some chick from his work. That is not your fault. Sure, allow your children to see him, but you are under no obligation to give him comfort when he ripped your comfort away from you. That's my take on it, at least. But first and foremost, I would be lawyering up, because pretty soon it's just going to be you and your kids, and you need to make sure that you have some semblance of a claim on his estate when he passes. I know it's very morbid to think about that kind of stuff, but this is something you definitely need to consider moving forward. So I wish you the best of luck on whether or not you forgive him, because honestly, this is a really heavy situation, and I think worst of all, I just feel bad for you as well as your kids, because they deserve to have a father in their life, and the situation is just really unfair across the board. My neighbor says that he saw my husband cheating, and I am in absolute shock. So to start off, my husband comes home late most of the time. He usually has a lot of meetings. However, his schedule is flexible, so sometimes he'll come home earlier. A couple of days ago, I was out shopping, and when I came home at around 4, he was there. I didn't think anything of it at the moment, so I just spent the rest of the day with him. Yesterday in the evening, my neighbor and I were going for a walk around the neighborhood. While talking, she asked me if I knew, and I didn't know what that meant. I was so confused. So I pressed her further, and she asked if I knew that my husband was cheating on me. My heart quite literally sank at the thought of it, but I didn't believe her. She reassured me and said that being married to a man like him comes with infidelity, and she has been through the same thing. She said that once the initial shock is over, I will come to terms with it. I was so confused because she still hadn't given me any proof of my husband cheating, and I got angry that she was just accusing him of things. She then told told me that a couple of days ago at around 11 o'clock, the day I went shopping, my husband brought a girl to our home in his car, and a couple of hours later, the girl left in a different car. She said that from her view, the girl had a similar body type to me and looked at around my age, but she had blonde hair. I was and am in shock. I couldn't continue the walk and I went home. My husband came home shortly after, and I wish I was better at keeping a straight face, but I just couldn't. He repeatedly asked me what was wrong, but I didn't tell him. He said that he will get it out of me eventually. My neighbor has always been so sweet to me, but this morning, after telling my best friends about it, they believe that my neighbor is lying. We have 2 security cameras that show the driveway to our house. The only problem is that my husband has the app on his phone. He is always extremely transparent, and I can go on his phone anytime. I don't check through it. I just search things if my phone is dead and stuff like that. But if he is cheating, he probably wouldn't let me go on his phone. My husband is huge on loyalty, and he is very possessive over me, so I don't understand how he could possibly be cheating on me. When we were out, he never looks at other women. He isn't even friendly to waitresses or anyone like that. He has always said that I am his exact type. He has always been all over me, but I am not going to be one of those delusional wives. Do you think he is cheating? If he is, I will be leaving him no questions asked, but please give me some honest opinions and advice. First and foremost, I wouldn't jump to any conclusions without some kind of definitive evidence. Your neighbor very easily could be lying. I don't believe them for a second without any semblance of proof. So the obvious first step is to go to the camera application and look through the footage. If something is deleted, specifically at the time that this lady's describing, then you know that something suspicious is going on. I think it's completely okay to be upset over this, especially the idea of your husband cheating on you, but I just wouldn't jump to any kind of conclusion without some kind of evidence to back it up. So video footage is obviously the first thing I would look for. Hopefully though, this isn't the case, and hopefully this is just the neighbor being weird, but then again, why else would they bring this up? Why else would they come to you specifically and say, hey, I saw your husband do such and such? Reasonably speaking, I don't think your neighbor would ruin their relationship with you as their neighbor just to try and get between you and your husband. I can't see someone realistically going to you and saying, hey, your husband's cheating on you, without actually meaning it or having some kind of visible proof. So hopefully you can get that visible proof with like footage or something like that, and hopefully you're able to figure this out. Because if he is cheating you, then yeah, you should probably break up with him sooner than later. Should I leave my boyfriend over him lying about deleting his Instagram account? We've been together for a year and a half. For a brief backstory, I come from a past of very terrible relationships, so I have a lot of trust issues that I've been working on. This has put a strain on our relationship at some points because I get really insecure about other women. A few months into our relationship, I noticed that there were some Instagram messages with a girl that he used to be interested in who lives in another state. They weren't bad messages at all, just friendly wishing each other well and commenting on each other's stories every now and then. I got uncomfortable about it because he seemed to try and hide it from me when I saw it. He told me he used to be into her years ago when they lived in the same area, but nothing happened between them except ending up being friends. He said he knew I would be upset, so he panicked and put his phone down out of reflex. I was uncomfortable about it, so he told me he would never message her again. He showed me the rest of his messages, and there wasn't anything bad, just messages with friends. I don't have an Instagram account, and I've expressed to him how I hate social media. He offered to delete his account to prove to me that he really doesn't care about talking to any other women besides me. Fast forward to now, I thought his Instagram had been deleted this whole time. I re-downloaded the app for the first time in forever to look at something random, and I decided to snoop on his account just to see if it was still there. Not only was it there, but I realized that he'd been liking friend photos after I did some more investigating. I then checked on the one girl I saw him messaging last year, and I realized he liked one of her photos in January. This made me really upset. I then confronted him and he apologized and admitted it was wrong to hide that from me. There was one time in January where he told me that he had re-downloaded the app for a work promotion, so I thought that maybe he just got on once or twice after that. I was mainly upset that he liked the picture of the girl that I was so worried about, but after a lot of talking, he was very sorry. He said he didn't think it was a huge deal and that he was just liking stuff on his feed. He considers her a distant friend, so he didn't think it was wrong or that he betrayed me by liking the photo. He didn't want to be open with me about it because he knows how insecure and sensitive I am, and he didn't want to cause any conflict. I let it go, but then a few days later, I had a nagging gut feeling, and I decided to look more into it to see if he's actually been on the app more than just once or twice. Up until this point, I had never gone through his phone or laptop, but I wanted the truth. So I got on his laptop while he was at work and got on Instagram to see if it's already been logged into his laptop. Based on his login history, he's been logged into the app almost every other day for the past 6 months or longer. This made my heart drop because I thought I was going to find messages of him cheating, but thankfully I didn't. There wasn't a single message to another girl except a couple of girlfriends he has that I'm not really worried about. The only other messages were with his guy friends. He also never messaged that girl again like he promised, so that was honestly a relief. I was also very upset about the lie, especially because he didn't fess up to being on Instagram this whole time after I thought he only logged in once or twice for work. His reasoning is that he doesn't feel like he has the space to be honest with me about this stuff. He said he just liked logging in while he was bored at work so he could see what his friends were up to. He said that since he knew he wasn't cheating on me in any way, he didn't feel it was wrong to get on and scroll and message some friends every now and then. The thing is, my boyfriend is a really good guy. He is very kind and loving towards me, even though he might not totally understand my trust issues. His ex cheated on him with several coworkers for 2 years straight, so he knows how bad that feeling is. I never actually thought he would cheat on me, but I also never thought he would lie to me too. I understand that I never gave him space to open up about this stuff because he fears I'll get mad. We talked about it and he agreed to be honest and open from this point on, even if it might hurt my feelings. I also told him I would give him the space to tell me these things and to work on not getting upset over other women. I really don't want to control him like that. I really don't know what to do. I want to stay and work on fixing this dynamic between us, but the lying thing shook me to my core. I hate being lied to. I get why he did it, and I don't think he is a cheater, but is it worth giving this relationship another shot? What should I do? This is a rough one because I mean at this point you're treating him like you don't trust him and you've trained him to like hide things and like to hide conflict from you because you're like hypersensitive about all this. So yeah, you've not given him any room to be honest with you in the slightest. It's super unhealthy and it's super restrictive. Like you say you don't want to be restrictive and you don't want to be that girlfriend, but then you turn around and do the exact thing that you don't want to do. It just seems really counterintuitive overall. And this guy is not cheating on you. Yeah, he probably should have been more honest about having an Instagram account, but scrolling through it just to see what your friends are doing is not bad. And while I do think it's a bad thing for him to like that girl's post, innately from the outside looking in, it is not a deal breaker in a relationship. I think your own insecurities are honestly getting in the way of you having any kind of relationship right now. And the fact that you don't trust him in the slightest and you feel the need to go through his phone and his laptop is proof enough that you're being incredibly controlling in this situation. In my opinion, it seems like you just didn't allow him to have any time to explain things to you because you react so strongly that he's like, okay, it's just not even worth saying anything. Every little thing gets blown out of proportion. That's my take at least. So I think if anything, you might need to look inwards first before you start pointing the blame at your boyfriend, who I think is honestly trying his best just to maintain this relationship with you. But what do you think? What would you do if you were in this situation? Leave a comment down below. We would love to hear it. An entitled Karen goes crazy on me after I banned her son from our store after he stole from us. And despite being shown the videotape footage that he did it, she still wasn't having it. Here's what happened. For context, I work nights at a gas station, and this happened a couple of days ago. About a week ago, 2 young men come into the store who are semi-regulars, as in I've seen them a few times before, but not often enough to know them. They came in around 2 in the morning and pulled a runner on me with around $30 in drinks and snacks. As I'm not allowed to chase shoplifters, I do what's required and I leave a note for my boss so she can pull the tapes and post the pictures for us so we can tell them to get out if they're ever stupid enough to come back in. You wouldn't believe how many thieves actually are in fact stupid enough to come back. These 2 morons in particular fit the bill. Fast forward to 2 days ago and wouldn't you guess it, I'm working my only weekly day shift, and who should walk in but my pair of stupid thieves? And who do they have with them? One of their mothers. I immediately buckle down and tell them they need to go now. This is pretty much how the conversation went down. I looked at them and demanded that they needed to leave right now. Both of them looked incredibly confused and said, "For what? We didn't do anything." I responded by saying, "You know exactly what you did, and you're banned from the store. You can leave on your own 2 feet or leave with a police escort. Your choice." They leave and go back to the car, waiting for them at the pump. From the window, I can see them talking to the woman in the driver's seat, gesturing and pointing. She gets out of her car and storms into the store. This entitled Karen looks at me and says, "Why did you tell my son and his friend that they can't come in here?" I look her square in the eye and say, "Ma'am, they ran out with nearly $30 in products. We do not allow thievery, and they are absolutely banned from the store. You are welcome to come and get what they need, but if they are seen on the property again, the police will be called." Much to my lack of surprise, this entitled Karen did not believe me. She said, "No, my son is not a thief. How dare you? Get me a manager." I told her that I would gladly do that. What she doesn't know is that my manager has less patience for customers' garbage than I do. Since the store isn't very big, she's already heard this exchange from the office. I bring out my manager and she says literally the exact same thing I did. The Karen says, "That's a bold-faced lie. My son is a good young man. You're targeting him and his friends for no reason." The manager then says, "Oh, well, you're more than welcome to come back and watch the tapes yourself if you don't believe me." And much to our surprise, the Karen says that she'll do just that. She then says, "And once I have proof that you're lying to me, I'll be expecting that this piece of garbage to be fired." In this metaphor, I'm the piece of garbage, by the way. My manager brings the entitled Karen into the office and I tag along for fun. Being the assistant is both part of my job and a joyful experience to watch this entitled Karen's face fall apart when she finds out her good young man is a dirty, rotten thief. My manager plays the tape and the entitled Karen's son and his friend, clearly identifiable as their only means of disguise, was their school track hoodies pulled over their hair. To add icing on this beautiful cake, they had their names on the back of their hoodies, which are the same hoodies that they're wearing in the car right now. The entitled Karen was too stunned to speak at first, but eventually she remembered how to be an entitled Karen and stormed out, shrieking that she would be calling corporate. Thankfully, they never came back, and honestly, we're still waiting for that call from corporate. What an absolute psychopath. What kind of parent in their right mind would in any way, shape, or form act like this? There is obvious evidence that your son is an absolute thief. They pulled a runner, ran out of the store with a lot of product, and now they're getting banned. If I was the store owner, I absolutely would have just called the police, but these people are a lot nicer than I would have been. So it's so good to see Karen justice come the way of someone who absolutely deserves it, because people like this are the worst you're possibly going to deal with, and watching their Karen resolve fall apart is truly a joy to witness. My friend views me as the other woman instead of a romantic relationship, and I'm so heartbroken that I simply don't know what to do. I met this guy a week ago, and we clicked pretty immediately and became very close. I had feelings for him, and he later revealed he had feelings for me. He's been in a very on and off relationship with somebody else for a while, occasionally seeing other people in dips, and basically for this reason, I didn't tell him I felt the same way at the time. I continued to try to suppress my feelings until for some reason they got a lot stronger, and I eventually told him I felt the same way a few weeks ago. His relationship with this other person was more so on standby for a bit before I told him, but I think I was somewhat aware that things had changed by the time I told him and that they were closer again. For a brief bit, this didn't bother me, but once the days of us both openly having feelings for each other left, it sunk in more that I was the other woman, for lack of a better term, and that I was secondary in this situation. We had a conversation a bit ago over text message where he basically in passing laid out how much this person meant to him, and then later, also in passing, referred to me as the third party. None of this was new information, of course, but hearing it laid out like that finally made me internalize it. I guess I fully knew I was secondary in general, but I hadn't really processed that I really was secondary emotionally. It kind of hurt to realize that, even though it wasn't necessarily new information. I've also now begun to feel guilty about my role here. Before, his description of his relationship was more so that they're just talking and not a couple. But the more I think about this, the more I feel guilty over it. To make things more clear, my friend and I are not involved in any sort of relationship right now, and we're still just friends, and for the most part, just talk as friends, except when this subject comes up. Now I don't know what to do. I feel like rationally I need to revamp my efforts to suppress my feelings, but it's just so difficult. I really do not want to stop talking to this guy, because outside of these feelings, we're also just really close friends, and easily the closest friend I've ever had. I've been able to compartmentalize my feelings with him before, and I believe he's able to do the same for me, so I believe it can work, but I just don't know how to go from being open with each other about our feelings to then having them be a non-factor in our friendship again. And the most difficult part is that in all actuality, I don't want to suppress them again. I just know it's what I should do and perhaps the good thing to do, which is ultimately what I should be listening to. But it just feels so easy to linger in whatever's between us now. What should I do? This is definitely a tricky one because I can definitely see where you're coming from with this. You found someone that you like and they've expressed their feelings as well that they like you. Unfortunately, it looks like the timing was really off for both of you and things didn't quite sync up. And now you feel like, oh no, I have to suppress these feelings again and I'm not sure that I can do it. And in my opinion, to be honest, I think you need to give yourself some distance from this guy. I know this can feel like this is the one that got away in some ways, but I think you need to look at this realistically. He's made it very clear, even if it's just subtle, that he wants to be with another woman. He does not want to be with you. And while I understand that that's completely heartbreaking and not the thing that you want to hear, it is objectively the truth that is happening right now. So give yourself some distance and allow yourself to get out of this fog, because you're going to feel like this for a while if you keep revisiting it over and over again. And you're only doing yourself a disservice by hanging on to this and trying to feel like there's some hope that you two can get together. Because honestly, from what it looks like right now, I don't think that's going to happen. You can kick yourself and say, man, I wish I admitted my feelings when he admitted his feelings for me, but at the time you were really confused and you didn't have it all together, which honestly is not unusual and it's totally normal. I also think it's really important to understand that he does not view you as a priority. I understand that you've got feelings for him, but he does not at this point anymore have feelings for you, and there's no reason for you to try and latch onto that. I wouldn't want to be with someone who viewed me as a secondary option. I would want to spend my time and focus on someone who is actually going to care about me first and foremost, and it sounds like this guy is not going to give you that. So in my opinion, give yourself some distance, and if possible, move on. That doesn't mean you don't have to be friends with this guy, but it does mean that you can start looking for somebody else who's going to show you the love and attention that you deserve. My boyfriend hid a huge thing about his past with his ex-girlfriend, and I don't know if I can ever trust him again. I've been with my boyfriend for just over a year now. He has a son with his ex-girlfriend that he never married, and they were breaking up when she found out she was pregnant. They tried to be together for their son, but she made it difficult and apparently was a horrible person. And trust me, it all got confirmed later that she really is. I just went on a week-long trip with my boyfriend and his family, and his mom told me about all the terrible things that she put him, his family, and everybody else through. She basically befriended them through social media and pretended to be all friendly just to get information on them. Then the second she didn't get what she wanted, she started harassing my boyfriend, his parents, his former girlfriend before me, as well as her family non-stop, until she took things way too far and started threatening people. They all told her that they kept a binder full of all of her harassment statements, and that if she continues, they'll take her to court. This was all linked as well towards getting custody of my husband's son, because the way she was acting was incredibly crazy. So it sounds like they were doing anything it took to get this lady to leave them alone. My boyfriend's mom also told me that his dad had been trying to convince him to take her to court so she can only communicate with him and everyone associated with him via a parenting email as well as an application. So there would be no calls or any text messages unless it's some kind of true emergency. His parents honestly don't trust her to try and not ruin his future relationships. And now that we're dating, his mom warned me not to exchange numbers with her or to engage with her at all. His mom is afraid that if we let her in, she's going to try to harass us too. This crazy ex-girlfriend also started messaging his mom again to try and be close to her after she found out about me. So my boyfriend's mom thinks she's doing this on purpose to try and weasel her way back into the family and to annoy me. So here's the issue. I'm really upset my boyfriend never told me about any of this. About once a month, every month, I'd ask him about what really happened because my gut kept telling me I'm not getting the whole truth. He would always tell me that she was difficult and made it difficult for him to spend time with his former girlfriend before me. And because of this crazy ex-girlfriend, they ended up breaking up as well. He also told me that he as well as his former girlfriend before me, dated for 3 months, but then I found out through this story that he was with her for about 8 months. I just feel like he had a year to tell me about the harassment, because here's the thing, I would not have dated him in the beginning if I knew there was any kind of serious drama there, and a possibility that the rest of my life with him might be full of complete and utter drama. He knew I wouldn't have stayed with him if I knew about what was going on, which is why he said he didn't tell me about it. I feel like now I can't trust him to be honest with me about any possible drama, starting with this crazy ex-girlfriend, all because he hid it from me from the beginning, just so I wouldn't leave him. And I feel like if he could keep this from me no matter how many times I asked about it, then what else could he keep from me? If it was so easy for him to lie to me just to keep me around, then what else will he lie about? He has put up so many boundaries with her from the beginning. When she started harassing him every time she knew we were together, she would fake emergencies so our dates would end early. She would also blow up his phone with messages when she knew we were together. I almost broke up with him then because I didn't want the drama in my life. But then he apparently told her if she continues to harass him in an attempt to ruin our relationship, that he'll take her to court with a whole binder full of harassment that his mom kept as well as printed out. She has apparently stopped to my knowledge, and he's done everything to make me feel comfortable about everything in our relationship. And I do have a close relationship with his son, but I just don't know how to get over this feeling like I can't trust him anymore. It seems like such a small thing, but it was in fact that he hid all of this from me and lied to me just so I wouldn't leave him. And that makes me feel like I can't trust him to tell me the truth about things he thinks would upset me. What should I do? There are quite a few red flags in here that you gotta be aware of. The fact that he left out information about this crazy ex who has a huge role in harassing him as well as his family is a big red flag in my opinion. It's not outright lying to you, but it is lying by omission. The fact that he isn't telling you about this, also he can keep you in a relationship with him, is super sketchy to me. And with his track record, he's had other girlfriends walk out because they couldn't handle the harassment. And I mean, honestly, who would? I would lose my mind if I had someone all over me like that, harassing me left and right and trying to ruin my relationship with my boyfriend, all because they're crazy and have some kind of weird vendetta against him. And sure, when you're dating someone who has kids, there's obviously going to be drama that comes along with it, especially if there's some kind of weird ex. But this is at a whole nother level. So if I was in your shoes, I would not blame you for not trusting your boyfriend, as well as saying, hey, you know what? I don't think this is what I want my life to be. And it really sucks that you have a good relationship with his son, but in my opinion, there's way too much baggage that has come along with this relationship that you were not told about in the beginning, which to me is a huge red flag and kind of a deal breaker. But that's just my opinion. What would you do if you were in this situation? Leave a comment down below. We would love to hear it. My boyfriend lied to me for 2 years about his education, and I'm seriously not sure what to do. I don't know where to even start. My boyfriend of almost 4 years has been lying to me about his education. He lied to me about getting his master's degree, and now about being in a PhD program. I guess he wasn't able to finish due to his grades, and didn't know how to tell me or his parents for the past 1.5 years. He just told me today that he's going to transfer his credits to another university and finish up there. I feel betrayed because I don't know why he wouldn't just tell me the truth. I would have supported him no matter what. I still love him and I want to support him, but I feel scared to trust him now. I'm not sure how to proceed. I don't want to leave him, but I don't know how to move on. I have gone through a wide range of emotions because of this. I've asked a lot of questions and I kind of understand why he did it. I understand the shame and the guilt that he carried that stopped him from coming forward. He has already started applying to other programs and genuinely putting in an effort to communicate how he's feeling. I don't think I was upset about the schooling portion more. I was, however, upset about the fact that he didn't tell me and thought that I would leave him if I found out the truth. It's upsetting that he didn't ask for help. I turned to him at my worst times and got help, and I am sad he couldn't do the same. Again, I absolutely do not want to leave him, but if I stay, does that mean that I don't respect myself? I don't think it does. How do I ensure he understands that lying is unacceptable and that his actions are not condoned by me despite me staying? Other than this instance, he is a loving, caring, kind person with a huge heart. He is extremely smart and very capable, but fell into this deep depression recently, all because of this situation. He really is my best friend, and I'm not sure what to do. I think it's fantastic that you want to stand by your boyfriend during this really rough time where he lied to you for 2 years about something that is so silly to lie about. But with that in mind, there's some big red flags here you definitely need to address. In my opinion, it's It's one thing to lie out of reflex to avoid difficult conversations or situations that might be difficult in some way. Those, in essence, are forgivable for the most part, in my opinion. But this man lied to you for 2 years about having a master's degree as well as being in a PhD program, both of which are incredibly difficult to get into. I think you should totally stay with your boyfriend if that's what you want to do and work on this relationship, but I think you need to set some very clear boundaries between the both of you that lying is absolutely going to result in you leaving him. Lying about something like this for 2 years, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. And this is a big lie at that. I mean, he was lying about being in a PhD program. That is not something you just step up and say, oh, I'm going to get into that. That takes a lot of hard work, all of which your boyfriend lied about. So I wish you the best of luck in moving forward with this. And hopefully he doesn't lie to you anymore, and hopefully he's a lot more open and doesn't make this mistake ever again. My boyfriend's mother is ruining our relationship. I'm not sure where to start with this one. My boyfriend and I bought a house in December. His mother does not have a home of her own, but lives with his brother 18 hours away. His mother used to live around here, but was not happy here. She moved 18 hours away because that's where grandbabies were, and she wanted to help them. Her son was happy to have her help with the kiddos, so it's all been good, except once again, she isn't happy. She has now thought it upon herself that she was going to move in with us for 6 months and then back with them for another 6 months. She is not happy anywhere and is actually quite rude to them. I have seen it with my own eyes. This is not something my boyfriend and I ever agreed to. Neither of us want someone living with us, especially a 70-year-old woman who is unhappy and constantly complaining. So we had a conversation with her that we would be happy to have her, but not for 6 months, just for 2 months, which is still too long for me, by the way. But I get it. We can handle that. Now she's talking behind our backs to people saying she is not welcome at our house. Now her best friend has called me upset with us, and I don't believe it's any of her business, and I kind of wish she would butt out. I do not know what to do here. I am going to have the conversation with her if she brings up staying longer, that I will help her get her own low-income apartment, but I know that that will not go over well. She is in great physical shape, by the way. She could easily be independent. How would you handle this? Are we just being difficult? What should I do? I want to let you know for a fact that the second she moves into your house, she will not be leaving in 2 months. She's going to stay a lot longer. She's going to complain. She's going to be nasty behind your backs in your own home, and you will never get rid of her. So no, you are not being unreasonable for gatekeeping when and how this lady comes into your house. And for me, the fact that she's talking badly about you behind your back is the best red flag you could have possibly hoped for. That to me would be my golden ticket to uninvite her and tell her flat out, if you're going to talk trash about me and my husband, guess what? You can find another place to live. You are not responsible for this lady's happiness. You said it yourself. She is very independent. She could figure this out herself. She's not some feeble old woman. So the fact that she's trying to do some weird power play by guilt tripping you into letting her stay longer is absolutely ridiculous. So in my opinion, I say stand your ground and tell her to get lost, because you don't have to put up with that kind of talk, and you have no obligation to try and cater to her every need. My friends expect me to keep a secret from my spouse, and I told them that that is absolutely unreasonable and that I won't do it. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I'm married to my 27-year-old husband. I was having a debate with my single best friend, and we still haven't reached a conclusion. The conversation started with my best friend saying, if I told you specifically not to tell your husband something, then I expect you not to tell him. And I responded, I don't think that's a fair expectation. These are all hypotheticals, of course. She's never told me not to tell my husband something, and she'd probably tell him herself since they're really good friends. Here's what I think personally. I feel like ever since we got married, my husband and I share everything with each other, whether to seek advice or comfort or whatever. My husband is great friends with all my friends, and if anyone ever said, don't tell your husband something, my first thought would be, but why? I also think it's unreasonable for any of my friends to expect me to keep things from my husband. I would rather not know whatever the secret is than to try and keep it from my husband. Also, it's because my husband and I have mutual trust, and we're not sharing whatever it is with other people, just between us. I also want to add that that doesn't mean I'll run to my husband immediately and tell him something that's going on. I think in this case, context matters. If a friend of mine ever said something that was really embarrassing involving their personal health, I wouldn't then go to my husband and tell him all about it. But for example, if they confided in me that they're having problems with their boyfriend, I would possibly talk to my husband to get maybe a male's perspective, or even just to ask advice on how to help my friend, or just to privately vent if my best friend isn't listening to my advice and still allowing themselves to get hurt. Again, I think these are just conversations I have with my spouse, and it stays between me and him, and that's it. But my friend has a different perspective. She thinks that if she specified for me not to tell my husband and I do it anyways, then that means I'm in the wrong because it wasn't a secret that I should share. And to an extent, I think that's valid. But again, I'd rather not know the secret in the first place if it's going to be like that. I've also asked my other married friends this same question, and they all mention that they do speak to their spouses about things because it stays between them and maybe they just needed some help. On the other hand, I asked some other single friends, and they all stated that they would side with their friend. So somebody help me out here. Is this a married couple versus a single person thing? I feel like I should be able to share anything with my husband, and that my friends honestly don't have a say in that. If I was in your shoes and I knew for a fact anything I tell my significant other is going to stay between the two of us, then I would absolutely share it with them. I think keeping things from your significant other is very toxic and has no place in a relationship personally. Obviously, there's context to everything and there's stipulations for all sorts of situations, but generally speaking, across the board, I absolutely would share information with my significant other. I am married to this person. I am with them for life. There's no way I'm going to treat that lightly. I personally would want their input as they're the person I trust the most. It would be different if I knew my significant other could not keep secrets and would in fact turn this around into something weird. If that were the case, then the situation would be much different. But in my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. What would you do if you were in this situation? Am I the jerk for kissing my best friend's girlfriend while he was in another state for his job? My best friend, we'll call him John, that's not his real name, has been dating his girlfriend for around half a year. His girlfriend never really talked, but I knew of her because she was dating John and he would talk about her all the time. I didn't really start talking to her and spending time with her until the past 2 months. John has been in another state for a job and he's coming back in August. He wanted us to spend time together since we never really talked before, and he thought that we would get along. As it turns out, he was completely right. We started spending time together and immediately clicked. I've always thought that she was a very beautiful girl, but I could spend all day with her just talking and not get bored. Every time we hang out together, we spend 10 plus hours together, just exploring or talking. We do talk about John sometimes too, since we're both close to him, and she seems to like him a lot. She also told John about how well we get along, and he was apparently pretty happy about it. However, I'm definitely starting to fall for his girlfriend, and I think I already have. I love spending time with her, and I can't help but think about what could have been if I had only met her first or started dating her first. Well, a few nights ago, it was pretty late, and I didn't want her going home alone, so I invited her to my apartment where she could stay for a little bit. We were just talking and watching some stuff. At one point, we were sitting on the couch and talking about dating as well as my dating life. There was this moment where we were just looking at each other, and I don't know what came over me, but I just leaned in and kissed her. I've wanted to kiss her so many times when we were talking, but I've always stopped myself. I pulled back once I realized what I was doing, and she seemed completely shocked. I apologized profusely, and she said it was okay, but that she had to go. Now I have no idea what to do. John loves this girl, but I like her a lot too, and I think there's a chance that she might like me back. I don't know if I should tell John or if I should ask her not to tell him. I really value John as a friend, and I also don't want to lose him, but I've never felt this way about a girl ever. What should I do? This is absolutely unacceptable. You made a move on your best friend's girlfriend. You kissed her without her consent. You two are not dating. This is not some date that you had set up where you're like, oh, I'm gonna lean in for a kiss. Her looking shocked and saying, oh, I gotta go, is her nice way of saying, I can't believe you did that to me. I'm getting out of here. Like, that was completely wrong. And you want to try and tell her to not tell her boyfriend that you made a move on her. Like, that is so disrespectful and so violating. And the fact that you think you can try and steal this girl away from her boyfriend, who by the way is coming back from a job very soon, is just disgusting. You can't have it both ways. You can't make a move on his girlfriend and then expect to try and still be friends with John. If I was John, I would be super pissed off. And you can bet she's gonna say something to John. I wouldn't keep that quiet if I were her. If I was her, I would immediately go to my boyfriend and say, hey, I don't feel comfortable around your friend because he kissed me. Like, in my opinion, if John has any sense about him, you are definitely not gonna have him as a friend anymore. And I really don't think you're gonna see this girlfriend anymore either. She's even expressed in what you've described that she really, really likes John. But you just stepped all over that by making a move on her. Whether she likes you or not, she is off the market, and hoping that she'll choose you over your best friend is really just toxic in my opinion. All in all, unfortunately, I really think you're a bad friend in this situation, and you're about to lose everything in front of you. Because if you really valued your friendship with John, you would have never done this in the first place. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for getting mad at my parents for getting clothing as a birthday present? So my birthday is coming up, and it reminded me of this memory I had, and I was just wondering if I should have reacted the way that I did. So on my birthday, I always get two gifts, one from my dad and one from my mom. Back then, I was just 9 years old, so I did not think rationally. When I wake up, I'm always greeted with a happy birthday from both of my parents, as well as their gifts. Occasionally, I will get other presents from people working for my dad, but mostly it's just from them. So that morning on my birthday, the same thing happens, and my mom and dad say happy birthday, here are your gifts. They give my gifts, and I open the first gift that my dad gave me, and it was a little dinosaur toy. I can't really remember the specifics of it, but what I do remember is that I was really grateful for it. At the time, I was really obsessed with them. Then I opened the second gift, the one that my mom gave me, and it was a pair of pants. For starters, I'm very picky on what color I like for my pants, as well as how it looks when getting clothes. I'm a guy, so I don't really need to get a lot of clothing. I can deal with like 5 shirts and I'm good. But when I do get them, I'm really strict. And the pants I got felt bad, they looked weird, and the color was not a color that I liked. I tried to act happy so my mom would think that I liked it, and so that she would be happy, but I was young and I was bad at lying. My dad could immediately see that I was unhappy. I am not spoiled at all. I'm very grateful for any gifts that I get, even if they are bad gifts. One time, I got a baseball as a present from a friend, and that's it. And I used it a lot, as I always try to use my gifts, because that is what it is for. People give it to me so I can use it. It's not just to look at. But I felt the pants were over the top. My dad apologized and said that he tried to reason with my mom, all the while the pants were not even valuable. It was like $12 max. I could understand why my mom wanted to get it for me, as my mom grew up in a poor part of Indonesia, and for her, she would be lucky to get 2 secondhand shirts for her birthday, even if it was too small or too big. But I'm not sure why she thought I would react the same. We are in no way in need of money, and I go to a good school at around $35,000 per year. This is above average where I stay. The whole day I was crying my eyes out, and I only stopped because my dad said we were going to Target for me to pick out anything I wanted that is not too expensive to replace what my mom gave me. And after what happened, they never made that same mistake again. I don't know if I was the jerk or overreacting to getting one pair of pants and making my mom sad that I hated her gift. So what do you think? Am I the jerk? This is probably the first one that I can confidently say, yes, original poster in question, you were a very big jerk as a 9-year-old. You should have been grateful that your parents even got you anything in the first place for your birthday. I have friends who grew up with absolutely nothing, so they got nothing for their birthday, except for a pat on the back. Sometimes they wouldn't even get that. And the fact that you implied that this is a mistake that they'll never make again is really, really rude. Like, that is like Karen status rude. And I'm personally very surprised that you could be that entitled. And I'm genuinely not trying to be mean or anything like that, but the behavior that you described is completely inappropriate and very, very rude, especially towards your parents. And you said it yourself. Your mom grew up poor, so she thought that this would be a good gift for you. It doesn't matter if you don't like the color of the pants. You should have accepted it and said, yes, I'm all for it. So to the original poster, I'm really sorry, but in this instance, when you were a kid, yes, you were the jerk. But hopefully you've grown up since then and are now appreciative of the gifts that your parents give you. My entitled family don't like my boyfriend for all of the wrong reasons. So this all happened in July of 2021, but I am just now finding out about it. Exactly 1 year ago, my boyfriend of 2 years got caught on fire. His leg was burned badly, and he has permanent scars from his left foot all the way up to his right ear. He spent a few days in the hospital and was discharged, but he couldn't work or drive for a month and had difficulty walking by himself. 15 days after his burn was my cousin's graduation party that we were both invited to, and my boyfriend was insistent that we should show up because we said we would go. I talked to my cousin and his parents and explained the situation and that we can't stay for long due to my boyfriend's condition. They understood and were happy that we decided to show up despite everything. So the day of the graduation party arrives, and I go for a more dressy look because I know my cousin and his family are kind of a bunch of snobs. My boyfriend wants to dress up too, seeing as this is the first time he would meet my extended family, but the clothes are too tight on his body and causes him to experience excessive pain. So I encourage him to wear something casual, saying my family will understand. I drive and we show up. Straight up, my boyfriend doesn't look the best. He's in baggy clothing that shows his bandages. His normally long blonde hair is singed and matted because he hadn't washed it in a week, all because the water as well as the burns don't really mix together and cause a lot of pain. My boyfriend limps around with me at his side, meeting everyone and making small talk. We eat food, we congratulate my cousin, and after an hour or so, we go. After such a short encounter, I didn't expect my family to immediately like him. I asked around, and everyone said they don't know him well enough to form any kind of opinion about him, which is fair. However, I recently learned through my mom that this was not the case. Most of my extended family hated my boyfriend, and for the stupidest reasons possible. They didn't like that he had long hair or that he works a blue-collar job, and even that he didn't show up in fancy clothes. They are disappointed that I chose to date someone like him. Some of my aunts even started planning a trip to take me to Italy so I can meet foreign boys in hopes of me cheating on my boyfriend. I would have understood if they didn't like him because he seemed like a jerk or any other good reason, but knowing what I know now makes me rethink everything I know about them, and now I see just how entitled they've always been. Your extended family are absolute jerks, and you are 100% right. Your family is full of a bunch of snobs, and this just proves it. Your boyfriend showed up to your cousin's graduation party after experiencing an intense burn across his body. That, I can only imagine, is an excruciating experience. He showed up to try and be supportive, but they just completely throw trash at him. I honestly wouldn't want anything to do with my extended family if they said that about my significant other, especially if my significant other didn't do anything wrong. This is a really terrible situation, and honestly, I don't blame you if you cut off that side of your family and choose to have very little to do with them, because if I was in your shoes, I definitely would do that. My fiance's parents are making my life a living nightmare, and I'm not sure what to do. I am a 31-year-old male, and I am currently living with my fiance at her parents' house. I have had an ongoing claim with SSI since 2017. That's a Social Security Administration, and I am still fighting them on it. My fiance supports us alone financially, so as a show of appreciation, I have tried to make her home life as relaxing as possible in any way I can, and as much as my condition allows. Her family has despised me from day one. They can't stand the fact that I'm not working and simply refuse to accept my plethora of reasons, as well as the fact that giving up my SSI case would lose me tens of thousands of dollars in back pay at this point. This is literally the only excuse they have ever needed to hate me with a passion, and I've never given them any other reasons unless very much justified. So we moved in with them in February, and from the second I stepped foot in this house, they continued to make me feel unwelcome and subservient to them in any way they possibly could. In spite of the fact that they are demanding I pay them $200 out of my food stamps every month, which is not only illegal, but is also something I'm given because I need it to survive, they also demand that I act as their housemaid with no pay, all while there are 5 other people living in this house. They have never outright stated that they expect me to do the majority of the work around the house, but it is very much implied when they say stuff like, "We want these things that nobody else is willing to do done right now." They have gone to such petty lengths as to set a timer on the Wi-Fi to incentivize me to go even more above and beyond for them than I already have been, blaming my love for gaming for why my sleeping habits are garbage, completely ignoring the fact that they have been told numerous times about many of my conditions, including a minor form of insomnia. They had a family reunion going on 2 weeks ago, and I asked my fiance to have them shut the timer off because I struggle very badly to sleep when she is not with me, and I wasn't particularly looking forward to no form of human contact for hours on end. They agreed, but with an ultimatum. If I didn't clean the mess that they left for me and then refrain from destroying the house, then the timer was going back on. So I buried my pride and my dignity, and I did what was demanded of me as I had for the past 3 months. I cleaned this this house just about spotless. The timer stayed off for a total of 3 days after they returned. My birthday rolls around and it's not a great day. I received a denial letter from SSI that day. I had been talked to like the lowest scum of the earth by my fiance's teenage stepsister all week, and my medical card still hadn't arrived from moving across states, so I couldn't make any appointments yet. On top of that, my fiance's stepbrother was made priority over myself when his birthday wasn't for another couple of days. So instead of my cake being made, after she bothered me to pick one out of her cookbook, his peach cobbler was made instead. As a side note, my birthday is on the 27th of June and my cake still hasn't been made, adding further to the constant feeling of insignificance and worthlessness that I have to endure from how I'm treated by everyone here, including my fiance. I needed to take some time to be alone and not worry about anything but my mental health. So I took the next 2 days off from doing any kind of work. I stayed up in my room, I gamed from the time I woke up until I went to bed, and I just tried to force myself into a healthier mental state. I figured 2 days shouldn't be a problem. Nobody else but the terrible teenagers does anything around here, and she does the absolute bare minimum and will take entire weeks off from cleaning anything. I always pick up the slack because, again, that's the expectation. And if I don't, I get punished like a child over it and have privileges taken away. Another side note, the internet having a timer only affected me. Everyone else had active phones with unlimited data and hotspot, while my phone has been deactivated for the past 9 or so months to try and save money. Well, as I should have expected, nobody else is willing to pick up the slack like I am. What I could not have expected was that the house went to absolute garbage. And like totally rational and logical people, the conclusion that my fiance's parents came to was that I was the problem because I don't deserve any breaks like everyone else gets. And my 2 days off from cleaning while also not contributing to any messes whatsoever, as I didn't even leave my room to eat the entire time during those couple of days, was what apparently caused the house to become an absolute garbage dump. Before, they set the timer between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. every day. But guess what they did this time? The only hours that the Wi-Fi was now accessible was between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. Conveniently the time my fiance's parents got off work till the time they go to bed. And again, this is only detrimental to me because I am the only one without an active phone, unlimited data, as well as a hotspot. They are aware of this, and this was a direct slap in my face for daring to need a few mental health days for myself. In response, my fiance reactivated my phone with all the benefits I needed to avoid them having anything to hold over my head anymore. I've completely stopped doing any extraneous cleaning, only worrying about myself and any mess I might make. And I don't interact with my fiance's father, the step monster, or any of those terrible stepchildren unless absolutely necessary. I very rarely eat when everyone else does, choosing to wait until her parents go to bed and then ignoring her sister while I have a meal because they no longer have any power over me, nor can they complain about my not cleaning the house since I'm very particular about not leaving any trace when I do eat or whatever. They have taken to manufacturing issues to have with me anyways. This morning I was playing a game and I performed a feat that I was hyped about. I popped off a little, nothing crazy, but I should have known better because anytime my fiance's stepmom hears me in any way, shape, or form in the morning, she throws a tantrum over it. She uses some BS excuse that she can't stand the noise first thing in the morning. It's not the first time she's fabricated this issue to have with me, so typically I am as quiet as possible if I'm up that early. Anyway, my fiance goes down to smoke and say good morning, as we heard her stepmom get up several minutes prior to my pop-off. She comes back and informs me that her stepmom was inquiring as to what all the yelling was about. My fiance told her there wasn't anything, but I was gaming and got a bit excited, but that I wasn't much louder than when I normally speak. So I go down and say good morning out of courtesy, because despite the resentment I feel towards the woman, I have a very strict personal virtues in regards to respect and courtesy. And even when I am not shown an ounce of either, I will always show courtesy and respect to everyone. She responds with, "Morning." I then apologize that she could hear me a few minutes ago, and this grown woman lost her mind. She starts going off about how it's kind of rude and inconsiderate to make a bunch of noise when people who work are trying to sleep. Okay, jab at the fact that I can't currently work. Petty, ignorant, but whatever. But mentioning rude and inconsiderate, the utter irony. Considering just 4 days ago, while I was sleeping, they blasted their music from the stereo at max volume, loud enough that I could hear every word with full clarity up the stairs around 2 corners and behind a closed door. Because they had to clean since they disrespected me, you know, the house slave, one too many times. And they couldn't just stand the thought of me peacefully snoozing while they had to do it. God forbid lift a finger to do anything beyond what they earn a wage to do. I have gone far out of my way to be far more considerate and respectful to everyone around here than they deserve. And she has the audacity to call me rude and inconsiderate? So, assuming she was trying to blame me for my fiance still being awake at 4 in the morning, something she has accused me for in the past, I inform her that my fiance wasn't even attempting to get sleep yet. She pivots hard. She isn't the only one who has to work. These walls are paper thin, and my room is directly below yours. Both of these statements, by the way, are complete lies. But this is just one of many examples of how these people treat me so poorly. It goes without saying, I think, but these people lack any sense of self-awareness, are self-centered, as well as ignorant. And I could not be any happier that my fiance just got a very significant raise that will help us get out of there as soon as possible. This is a rough story overall, because I can only imagine being stuck in that kind of situation. It sounds like these in-laws are absolutely horrendous to deal with. They are not kind, they're not nice, and it sounds like they haven't even tried to welcome you into their home. And the fact that they tried to place restrictions on your internet access is just crazy to me. Like, what rational adult is going to try and do that to another rational adult? And I really find it disturbing that they are disrespecting the fact that you have disabilities that are preventing you from working on a daily basis. And here's a fun fact, some disabilities are invisible. You can't see them. Like, you don't have to be stuck in a wheelchair or in a walker or use a cane to be classified as having a disability. There's a lot more nuance to it than just that. So I really feel bad for this guy's situation, and hopefully this gets worked out, because the way you're being treated in this house is just really disrespectful. I can see where the family's coming from, where they want you to work and have a job, and I honestly think that having that disability status is probably going to be the only thing that proves to them that, hey, I can't actually work. So I honestly wish you the best of luck, and hopefully things work out for you and your fiance. An entitled man-child screams at me at the top of his lungs, all because he booked his room wrong at the hotel I worked at. I took just about as much as I could handle, and eventually I had to put him in his place. Here's what happened. I was working the 3 to 11 last week at the hotel I work at, as I normally do, and I was all by myself, as the managers had both gone home for the day. In walks a family who had a reservation booked through a website. I got them all checked in with no issues, and off they went. A few minutes later, they're back downstairs at the front desk, and the man is quite upset. He said that the room type was not what he booked and that it was too small. He was convinced he had booked the single king suite with a whole separate bedroom, but the room type on his reservation was actually just a regular single king room. No matter how much I attempted to explain it to this man, he was refusing to accept it. He proceeded to yell over me and insist that he booked it correctly and that there's no way his reservation was for a regular king room. He said I was accusing him of lying and kept demanding that I would move his room. It was pretty obvious that this man thought he could shout me down and intimidate me into giving him what he wanted, because I'm a young woman who was working by myself. Eventually, I got sick of being cut off and screamed over, so I informed him that if he did not stop screaming over me, I would cancel his reservation and that he was welcome to find accommodations elsewhere. I was not rude, but I was firm and made it clear that I was not going to be treated that way. After that, he shut up pretty quickly and attempted to find some kind of proof in his email that he booked a 1-bedroom suite. And of course, he couldn't do it because he didn't. Eventually, he sulked away and made his wife do all of the talking. She was being overly sweet to me and said that she told her husband that he needed to leave me alone. She asked to book another room just to have more room for their kids. So I obliged, since she was able to speak to me like a human being. They stayed for 5 nights, and the man who screamed at me spent the rest of his stay avoiding me and walking quickly through the lobby. You better believe I gave him an extremely cheerful greeting every time I could catch him. Anyways, the family checked out, and I saw today that they left a review stating that I was very rude and inappropriate in front of her children. She also straight up lied and claimed that she checked in at 3 and there was no manager, but they actually checked in at around 7:30 p.m. So of course the managers had all gone home by that time. She also lied and said we did not clean their room when they requested service, when when in reality, they actually declined service for their rooms when asked. I have no idea why some people are like this. I did have several other guests who witnessed that man's temper tantrum come up to me later on and tell me that I handled the situation extremely well. One woman even told me I inspired her daughters and made them feel empowered by standing up for myself as a young woman. So all in all, it was kind of worth it to me. What an absolute psychopath this guy was. He's screaming and crying because he got his reservation wrong. And you know what? People like this know exactly what they're doing. They are only yelling at you so they can try and get a better room. There might even be a chance that he booked this room wrong just so he could try and yell at the front desk so they would give him a bigger room, all for free. And if that's the case, man, that's just disgusting. Overall, the original poster handled this like a boss, and it is so refreshing to see someone stand up for themselves in the face of some entitled man-child. Am I the jerk for not getting my girlfriend a birthday present? My girlfriend and I have been dating for 3 years. Today, we got into a fight because she was upset that I've never bought her a birthday present or any kind of present, even though I told her I don't like buying gifts. She is mainly upset because she has bought me presents for almost every occasion, and even my birthday, which was recently. But I told her not to because I don't want to feel bad if I forget to buy her something. This made her really upset, and she asked why I would forget to buy her something. I just don't put a lot of importance on gifts for special occasions, and I probably would forget. I just don't know how to explain that I don't put a lot of importance on buying presents. Am I the jerk in this situation? So let me get this straight. You have been with your girlfriend for 3 years and you have not gotten her a single gift for any reason at all? That seems crazy to me. Sometimes, to be completely honest with you, when you're in a relationship, you do things to make the other person happy. And clearly, getting gifts of some kind to celebrate her birthday or Christmas or anything is very important to her. Like, why would you not clue into that and say, hey, maybe I should do this simply because she likes it? Because giving a gift to someone is not about you, it's about the person who is getting the gift. And to be honest, she's completely justified in being upset. Like, you legitimately don't get to decide that you don't have to buy a present for her on her birthday simply because you don't like buying gifts. It is her birthday. Of course you want to get her something. And it's very selfish to have the cop-out of saying, oh, I'd probably forget when it comes to getting a gift, because that's unacceptable. Like, there's no excuse for that, and it seems like you're just trying to skirt around the fact that you don't like giving gifts, which is fine. You cannot like giving gifts, but you have to do it anyways for those you care about, especially for your girlfriend who's expecting something on her birthday. Like, how sad is that? She probably got a present from just about everybody, except for the one person in her life that's supposed to love her the most, aka her boyfriend. So yeah, I think you need to do better than what you're doing currently, because this is just unacceptable in my opinion. So unfortunately, in this case, yep, you are definitely the jerk. My best friend's stepbrother left him alone in a strange city, and I legitimately could not be more shocked. So this took place a few weeks ago. I'm from Sweden, and in June, we celebrated midsummer. So my best friend and I, as well as some of our friends, decided to spend the weekend at his parents' summer house, located on an island outside a city about just an hour-and-a-half drive away. They graciously allowed us to be there by ourselves, as they had another party to go to. His stepbrother and his fiance wanted to join and bring some of their friends as well, and we thought, why not? The more the merrier, right? Anyway, overall we had a great weekend. The only annoying and reoccurring thing was the obvious lack of respect the stepbrother and his fiance showed towards my best friend or any of us in general. They kept acting like it was nice of them to let us tag along, when in fact it was the other way around. The day when most people, including me, were going home, the stepbrother offered to drive 2 trips with the boat so that everyone who was catching a train home could go that way and no one would have to take a ferry. But then, after the first trip on which all of his friends had gone, he didn't have the energy to fulfill his promise and take the rest. So my best friend had to do that. Then my friend, the stepbrother, and his fiance stayed behind another day to clean up. When going home, they all took the boat into the harbor and were seemingly, as they had previously agreed, all driving back home together. The stepbrother and the fiance had been allowed to borrow my best friend's parents' car to get there in the first place. Only when my friend was about to get into the car, he noticed that they had put all the luggage in the back seat instead of the trunk. And just when he was about to ask where he would fit, the fiance said, "Well, okay, thanks for this weekend." My friend asked what she meant, and then she replied, "It would be great if you could just get the train home. We have no room for you." Then they got in the car and just left. The next train home didn't leave for 5 hours. My best friend's mom and stepdad were livid when they found out that they didn't take him with them, especially when it wasn't even their car in the first first place, especially when he had been nice and let them come along in the first place. They tried to say that the car was lent to them after all, and not to him, and that they had a lot of luggage, and that he didn't live close to them anyways, which is absolute BS. I don't understand how you could treat your sibling this way. And before anyone says anything, they were 5 and 6 years old when their parents got together, and they are now 26 and 27, so they have grown up together. I could never leave my sister in another city. Even the thought of it is absurd. I really just don't understand how you could be that entitled. That is pretty crazy. I can't imagine being 5 hours away from getting home and being asked to take a train ride home all because my sibling is being selfish. I mean, these are fully grown adults. You would expect some semblance of common sense, but that's a lesson learned. Definitely next time you go on a trip, do not bring your stepbrother and the fiance along with you, because chances are you're just going to get left behind and they're going to do things most likely at your expense. My boyfriend is delusional about how much cleaning he does and how little I do, and it's honestly driving me nuts. My boyfriend and I are both in our mid-20s and have been together for 2 years. When we first started living together, he had no housework at all. We talked about it, and now he does a decent amount. The main thing he does is straightening up, like collecting all the piles of whatever and putting them in neat piles of rows. He does not actually put them away where they go. This is important for later. Overall, it would be hard to say what the exact breakdown is, but there are days or weeks when he does more than I do. The thing is, he has been acting like the biggest martyr since he started doing this. He sat me down for a very serious conversation and said that I do not do enough to express my gratitude for what he does. I sometimes verbally acknowledge what he does, saying stuff like, "Wow, the place looks great, thanks for cleaning up." But he said he still does not feel very appreciated. I am just like in another dimension with rage, because for the longest time, he did literally nothing, and now he continues to have no concept of how much work I actually do around the house. He still has never once in his entire life folded a piece of laundry or cleaned a toilet. Yesterday, we got together with some friends, and he was complaining to his friend when he thought that I was out of earshot. He was saying how difficult it is for him to live with someone who is so messy and disorganized. I am someone who has color-coded file drawers and meal preps for every meal. In my opinion, I do the vast majority of the actual housework, even though he does reduce the overall mess on a day-to-day basis. On the one hand, I feel so angry and even taken advantage of, and hearing this conversation with his friend felt like the last straw. But on the other hand, he does a lot more than he used to, so maybe I need to just get a sense of humor about how delusional he is and appreciate what he does. Should I talk to him? And if so, what do I say? I mean, it sounds like your boyfriend's being silly, to be completely honest. Like, why should he get gold stars for the stuff that he does on a daily basis? Like, these are household chores. You're an adult. You have to do them. And for him to go around and act like, "Oh man, I do so much work and you're doing nothing. You're so disorganized." That's really comical. I don't know if he's trying to joke around, maybe try and see if there's some kind of humor in what he's saying. But if he's being actually serious and he's actually meaning what he's saying, then he's being very childish. And hey, maybe he does feel underappreciated. Maybe the solution is just to be like, "Oh, good job, buddy." And maybe that'll satisfy some weird demand he has for praise. But then again, who wants to put up with that? So I don't know if that's what you want to go about doing. And maybe you're right. Maybe this literally is the first time he's ever done housework, and he was expecting a parade and fireworks to go off, when in reality, it's just housework and it's one of those things he should have been doing in the first place. What is concerning is that he's having this as a legitimate conversation with his friends, which is definitely not good. And I think maybe sitting him down and having a serious talk about all of this and how it makes you feel when he talks about you behind your back would be very valuable for your relationship moving forward. My boyfriend is constantly embarrassing me and putting me down. Should I break up with him? So my boyfriend and I have been dating for approximately 3 months now. While I understand that is early, there's honestly been a lot of things about him that have made me question being in a relationship with him. However, I can't tell if I'm asking for too much here or whether these are valid issues. For one, he lies constantly, although these are about petty things. When we first met, he told me how his dad was a mafia boss and how much money his family comes from, yet he continuously wears the same outfits on repeat every day. I mean, I remember him wearing the same pair of jeans for like 3 weeks straight, not to mention almost all his clothes have stains on them somewhere. I remember asking him to dress fancy for my birthday lunch, and so he wore the same ripped up jeans and an old sweater. He also does not care care about putting in any effort in front of my friends. The first time we all went out together to a museum, he had grease stains. I'm someone who's always put together. I've also asked for flowers so many times and didn't even get them on my birthday. He ended up delivering a flower teddy bear to me a day late and blamed it on the florist company, but really, I think it was just his lack of planning. He's never put any effort into school. He skips classes daily and is taking a gap year next year. In contrast, I'm taking my academics seriously. Honestly, there's just so many empty promises with my boyfriend, such as him saying that he'll pay for my nails and such. He knows gift giving is my love language and he promised to live up to that. Plus, if you're bragging about family owning hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'd assume you'd be fine with this, right? It's only nails. He told me to pay first and that he would e-transfer me back. Well, guess what? It's been 3 weeks and the reason behind this delay is because he just hasn't gotten paid in time. And just as an extra note, he constantly indirectly flexes everything he owns and does. And these are just one of many things that he does all the time. Now, you are probably wondering why I'm even with him in the first place, right? Well, he constantly shows me love through always being there for me when he texts me, picks me up, and drives me far places. He does this all just to make me happy. Also, this is my first serious relationship, and I've moved to a different country for 2 months, and he is honestly the only one I really talk to. So it'll be hard to leave him when he's really the only one that I ever really spend any hours in the day with. He's also forgiven me when I vented things to my friends, and it came back to him. So I was thinking he must really love me for that. They ended up telling me I was unappreciative of him and how much he loves me, and that I was in the wrong. That's why I'm just so confused about this whole situation. What should I do? If you've only been with this person for 3 months and you're feeling like you kind of want to break up with them, then I think that's something you probably really want to give some solid thought to. There's no reason for you to settle for some kind of bad relationship, especially with someone who's going to lie about really stupid petty stuff. And I totally understand that you don't want to be alone, but guess what? You can make new friends. The original poster, by the way, is only 18 years old. And trust me when I say this, you have so much time left to find a relationship that you can be confidently happy with and not just settle for some guy just because he makes you happy and he drives you around and he occasionally gets you stuff that you like. If he's doing this other stuff that's really not making you feel comfortable or in some ways is kind of breaking your heart, then let that be a sign that maybe you might want to start looking at if you even want to be with this guy in the first place. My girlfriend is fighting with a mutual friend of mine and thinks that I can't be friends with her either, and I'm honestly not sure what to do now. Currently, my girlfriend and one of our mutual friends by the name of Sarah, that's not her real name, are not on good terms with each other. It's basically just girl drama. My girlfriend basically feels like Sarah never defends her from a certain person who is always talking garbage about my girlfriend. Personally, I think they'll get over it eventually. Over the past few years, Sarah and I have also become close friends with each other. We hang out pretty often and game together. Sarah has reached out to me and said that she knows things aren't great with her and my girlfriend, but that she really values my friendship and hopes that at least we can remain friends, regardless of how things with them turn out. Personally, I agree entirely, but this makes my girlfriend incredibly mad. She says it tells everyone, including her, that I am on Sarah's side by continuing to hang out with her. I think she's wrong, and I'm allowed to be friends with people she doesn't get along with. How do I make it clear to my girlfriend that because I'm remaining friends with Sarah doesn't mean that I don't support her? How can I make her feel reassured without cutting ties with Sarah? I think you're missing it completely what you should be doing here, and in my opinion, you should be taking your girlfriend's side. The fact that Sarah is inserting herself into your life at the expense of your girlfriend, in my opinion, seems super planned. Like if I had a beef with someone and I wanted to get back at them, I would try to wedge myself between them as well as their significant other to try and add some more misery in their life. And personally, it sounds like Sarah in this situation is trying to do just that. By pushing to try and be friends with you, it is in a roundabout way taking a shot at your girlfriend. And I think you need to wake up and see that that's exactly what's happening. And is your girlfriend correct in assuming that, hey, this means that you're not on her side? In my opinion, yeah, absolutely. You are showing to her that you would rather spend time with Sarah than stand by your girlfriend and say, get lost. If I was in your shoes and someone was disrespecting my girlfriend as well as talking trash about her, I would kick them to the curb immediately. They would have no chance to try and be my friend again. If I really loved my girlfriend, I would be on her side. This is all just some elaborate power play, and you are literally just a pawn in this girl's scheme. And the sooner you realize it, the sooner you'll be able to keep your relationship with your girlfriend. Because let's look at it from the other perspective. How would you feel if a guy you disliked and had some kind of dispute with suddenly messaged your girlfriend and said, hey, let's remain friends regardless of what what happens between you and your boyfriend. I'd be pretty pissed off and I'd say, hey, I need you to stop talking to him. So yeah, long story short, your girlfriend's right, and if you were wise about this, you would take her advice and cut this chick off, because she legitimately just wants to ruin the relationship that you have with your girlfriend. And if you're not careful, you're about to be collateral damage. I made my boyfriend choose between me and his best friend, and he didn't choose me, and now I'm not sure how to get him back. It was honestly a stupid decision, but try to understand me. They have known each other since he was 16, and they get along really well together. I've only known him for about 2 years, not even that. We immediately went out together a few months after our first meeting. When it comes to his friend, I didn't know her. I even thought I was his best friend. Then one day his friends talked about her. They are their friends in common. So even if they don't show it, I know they would have preferred to see him be with her, despite the fact that they don't say it to my face or show it. Apart from that, everything was fine between us, until I learned from him that he had been in love with her, but that she preferred that they remain friends even if they flirted together. Then he reassured me that he no longer felt anything. But it hurt me to know that this girl's decisions played into our meeting, because it was at the time that he was heartbroken, and the friend we had in common forced him to ask me out because he knew that I liked him. He also had a crush on me, but I know that he liked this girl even more. I met her, by the way, and she's really nice. She's even friends with my older sister, but I don't really like her. I feel like the other women when she's there. They have the same taste in music. She made him discover so many things. He cares so much about her, even when I'm there. I suspected them of having a relationship, and I got angry one day, and I blocked him for a few weeks, even when he swore to me that there was nothing between them. I made him choose between me and her when I finally agreed to see him, and he told me he couldn't do that to her. He left me now, and I regret it a lot. What do I do to get him back? I'm honestly not sure what you can do in this situation, because as the saying goes, the toothpaste is already out of the tube, and getting that back in is probably not gonna happen. I mean, you made him choose between you, someone he just met about 2 years ago, compared to someone who he's known most of his life. Like, this other girl is his best friend. Like, why would you provide some kind of ultimatum when you didn't need to do that? That's just childish, and that's really inappropriate. It doesn't matter, in my opinion, if you have any kind of jealousy towards this girl. If they really are just friends, as your boyfriend told you, then there's no reason for you to get defensive and somehow think, oh no, but they're definitely cheating. That's really, really toxic, and in my opinion, I think you kind of got what was coming to you. So next time, in my opinion, don't give an ultimatum to your significant other, all because he has a female best friend who you don't like that he's spending time with. 2 entitled parents try to bully my brother-in-law into giving them his inheritance, and I could not be more shocked by how childish they acted. For some background information, my husband's parents have been terrible people for a lot of reasons. My husband has been living on his own since he was 17 years old. His parents kicked him out of the house because his older brother didn't break down moving boxes or some other petty crap like that. The entitled parents just decided they were done being parents and kicked both of their boys out of their house. We've been together for 26 years, so I have personally seen these garbage parents in action for a long time. My husband's brother, though, was permitted to live with them intermittently after the initial boot. My husband never asked them for anything ever again, and we are extremely low contact with them. My husband's grandparents both passed away last year, within days of each other due to old age. They were really nice grandparents and a great set of role models to our family. After they passed away, we were given some household items and didn't expect anything from the estate. Unbeknownst to us, there was a portion left to each of the adult grandchildren. The aunt in charge of the estate recently sent a letter telling my husband how proud Grandpa was of him, as well as a check for $5,000. This was a really nice gift. My husband has depression issues stemming from his childhood, so having something tangible for him to hold on to, as well as to read from his grandfather, was so nice. Because we're doing well, we're able to just deposit the check into our savings. This estate planner said that the grandparents would be very happy that we are saving it. My husband's brother struggled through his young adulthood and has some codependency issues with his entitled parents. He's been living away from the entitled parents for several years now and has overcome some significant problems. He bought a house recently and also said he was planning on putting money into his savings. The entitled parents caught wind that the boys were given some money, and so they called my husband's brother, and they were completely belligerent with him. They claimed that he owed them somewhere between $2,000 to $5,000 $1,000, but that they would settle for just $1,000. Now, my husband's brother is doing much better than he ever has been. I'm super proud of him. He was able to put his inheritance into a savings, but he literally just emptied out his savings account to buy his house. His car needs work, his wife is disabled, and he has 4 kids. He needs an emergency cushion, but his parents kept bullying him and eventually pushed him into agreeing to send them $1,000. And while he hasn't sent the money to them yet, he made payment arrangements to start the next pay period. 10 payments of $100. As a side note, this money that my husband's brother supposedly owes to his parents was all from when they lived together over 6 years ago. He paid the full amount of rent and utilities at the time, but his parents were supposed to pay for food and help with babysitting. Full disclosure, the whole group is dysfunctional together. My husband calls his brother just to talk to him, and he tells my husband exactly what his parents did. My husband's brother is so stressed out, and he doesn't want to give his parents any money, but feels like he has to. He also says that he owes us some money because we paid his light bill a few months ago, but we were not even stressing about the light bill money at all, and haven't even asked for any kind of repayment. My husband tells his brother under no terms should he send that money to his parents. The grandparents sent the money to the grandkids through the estate planner. We assume they did it specifically because if they sent it through these terrible parents, it would never come our way. My husband's brother is nervous because he's on shaky ground with his parents. But my husband said, who cares? They're terrible parents and you're better off without them. He agrees and says that he won't send them the money. My husband said that if the parents call again and ask for money, let them know that the estate planner will be notified of their attempts to hustle them out of money. And also, for the record, these terrible parents were also given an inheritance, but they borrowed money from the grandparents several times over the years. And each time they borrowed money, the grandparents stated that this money comes from their future portion of the estate. I don't know what was left for the entitled parents, especially after all that borrowing, and honestly, we don't really care. So hopefully my husband's parents don't get any money from my brother-in-law, as he deserves that money and he should be saving it. That's a really terrible story, especially when that money was not meant for those parents at all. How gross and disgusting do you have to be to still try and sink your talons in your kids just to shake them down for money? And they're doing it right. I would also 100% let the estate planner know exactly what they're doing, because it's unethical and it's just rude. And it's really ridiculous that it was 6 years ago that he lived with his parents, and they're still holding a grudge about money that he owes. I get that you have to pay it, but it seems like a very convenient time to start demanding money, especially when they first give the range of $2,000 to $5,000 and then say, oh, but we'll only take $1,000. I bet you he only owes them maybe $300 at most. So yeah, hopefully these parents don't get any of this money, and hopefully this guy goes no contact with his parents, because based on what we're hearing, these people absolutely suck. I am at a breaking point with my fiance's financial irresponsibility, and I simply don't know what to do. When I first met my fiance 6 years ago, she was literally so buried in debt that her wages were being garnished and she was facing bankruptcy. I helped her carve her way out by footing the majority of the bills and asking that she cut her cards up and never use them again. I thought we were beyond this ordeal, but today I had a conversation with her that made my head almost explode. We rarely discuss finances because it's frequently a source of tension in the relationship. I honestly thought she was doing better because I confirmed that she was debt-free as of a year ago. Somehow within that short time span, she managed to max out 2 credit cards and accumulate roughly $12,000 of high-interest credit card debt that she now has to struggle with on top of her student loans. I'm furious and have no idea where to go from here. I own a house and she pays for a portion of the mortgage, so I suggested that maybe she can forego those payments to make progress on her debt. This is probably a stupid idea that will not solve her spending problem, but it's worth a try. Ludicrously enough, this conversation was spawned by her requesting to take a vacation that we simply cannot afford. I do all right financially, and I make about 6 figures, but in principle, I find this behavior absolutely appalling. I think of everything we could have done with the money that she just throws away on credit card interest payments, and I am fixated on the idea that we as a couple will never hit our financial goals due to her extreme mismanagement of her finances. I could be going on trips or setting up investments for us, but once again, I am needing to bail her out. Is there any hope that she's capable of changing? What should I do? My first question is, what on earth is she buying that's making her max out so many credit cards? Like, please tell me this isn't some kind of stereotype where some lady's just going shopping. I would almost be curious to see where she's actually using these credit cards to try and see if you can maybe put restrictions on where she can and cannot shop. Not necessarily anything that you would do personally, but maybe setting setting up like ground rules like, okay, if we go to this store or this website, we can't use the credit cards. And honestly, you're getting ready to marry this lady. You absolutely need to discuss finances with her. If you honestly can't discuss finances today, getting married isn't going to help anything. Being financially responsible is a pretty big deal when you're legally bound to somebody else. And it doesn't sound like she totally understands that. I think maybe she thinks that you're just going to bail her out no matter what, obviously because you love her, but to a certain degree, it kind of seems like she's using you a little bit, which in this case isn't totally irrational in my opinion. You are getting married after all, so finances kind of become a thing between the both of you. But in my opinion, I think it's time to set up some serious ground rules between the both of you. You can't be expected to bail her out every single time just because she is making some terrible decisions. That's honestly not fair for either of you. So hopefully you're both able to find a solution to this, and that she's able to see that you can't keep maxing out credit cards and expect everything to be happy in your home. I got tipped 86 cents as a server. Now you might be thinking, oh no, that's really bad. Yeah, I would have thought so too, but I want to share why I'm not mad that I only got an 86-cent tip. I only was scheduled one day this week, and when I went in for my shift, I got a table fairly quickly. It was just a one-top with a little older lady. She kind of reminded me of the iguana assistant from the movie Sing, but not in a bad way. She was one of the sweetest customers I've had in such a long time. Very polite, wasn't rude at all, and was really nice to me in general. Now, my restaurant uses the Presto systems to pay. If you don't know what that is, basically it's a table tablet thing that your table pays on. They can also play games and other stuff too. Basically, these things are a pain in the butt, especially for the older crowd. I don't know why they thought this customer base was the best for upgraded payment systems, but whatever. So the lady pays and she tells me she accidentally forgot to tip, but she wanted to tip me because she really enjoyed my service. Her bill came out to about $50. Now, I was going to find a manager to pull back her receipt, but when I walked in the office, the bartender was filling out an incident report. So I backed out slowly and went back to the lady. Also, I couldn't have printed the receipt to sign either because there's no option for that after it's printed after using the Presto machines. I just figured I would ring in something cheap and she could leave a tip on that. So that's what I did. I rang in something that was about $3, she paid for it and said she'd leave 20%. I didn't think about it until I looked at the notification for how much I got tipped. It was only 86 cents. And honestly, I just kind of laughed and I wasn't even upset about it at all. The lady really did try to tip me 20% of her original bill, but it was just a weird situation. It really was the thought that counted, to be honest though. Honestly, if it was any other table, I probably would have been very upset. But you know what? Accidents happen. That's a really cute story because at least this lady did try to say, hey, I want to leave you a good tip. And it's just a shame that it only came out of the $3 purchase instead of the $50 one. Hopefully next time those machines get worked out and that kind of mistake won't happen again. I took a secret trip to buy an engagement ring, and now my girlfriend thinks I'm cheating. I've been planning on proposing to my partner for a long time now. I've got this big surprise trip planned, and I've kept it on the down low perfectly so far. That is, up until now. The last thing I needed to do was buy an engagement ring. So I went to 2 different cities to browse engagement rings, and obviously while keeping it a secret from her. Google Maps on my phone was logged into her Google account, and little did I know it tracks your every move. And you can look at your past trips as well. She just so happened to be looking at a recent journey that she did and saw that someone had obviously been to these places and asked me about it. I am a terrible liar. So I said I did go there, but I can't tell her why. And now she thinks I've seen another girl. Google Maps has officially screwed me over. What do I do? This is definitely a pickle because it's one of those where you really can't tell her what you were doing at those specific locations. And it really sucks because you can't go into more detail without giving away the surprise. It's one of those things where you're stuck between a rock and a hard place and it's like, oh no, what do I do? Obviously, you don't want your girlfriend to think that you're cheating on her when in reality, you're setting things up to do the exact opposite and marry her. So I think if anything, you could probably just say, hey, I didn't want to ruin the surprise, but I'm getting you a present of some kind. You're not lying by any stretch of the imagination, so you really might be able to get away with saying this without her assuming the worst. There's also the distinct possibility that based on where you went on Google Maps, she might be able to figure out that you went shopping at specific places. And if you went to like a jewelry place where they're selling rings, then I can completely understand where she's coming from, where she's thinking, oh no, he's cheating on me. Hopefully though, she comes to her senses as soon as you propose to her and things are able to go swimmingly and wonderful between the two of you. My husband is moving out on me in my time of need, and I honestly don't know what to do about it. I'm a 41-year-old female and my husband is 37. We met 10 years ago, and we've been married half that time. He has been crashing at his family's house for about a year. He declared us as separated with no input from me. For background, he has never given sincere apologies and has always been hugely resistant to compromise. We endured a string of major tragedies in our lives right after getting married, and big financial and logistical strains involving insurance as well as other things. I sacrificed myself in ways that raised a lot of eyebrows to help his family. For me, I have been unable to find work due to a blacklisting retaliation situation. I should be a highly paid professional, but I have been shut out. This happened early in the pandemic, and I've struggled with finding a lawyer because of how complex this case is. Also, around that time, I was diagnosed with CPTSD from the effects of a severe childhood trauma and multiple workplace traumas. The work situation is truly horrifying and a huge chicken or egg problem that no one seems to be able to solve. I arrived back from the long-distance retaliation job and moved back into our tiny little place with my stuff. He had even thrown some of my stuff in our storage unit without really asking me. He moved out because when I came back during the pandemic, he got mad that there were too many DVDs in the TV cabinet, while also asking me to get rid of some of my clothes and makeup, as well as some of my books on the bookshelf because he needs the open space. It was a lot of small, petty things just like that he would request that were just really nasty. And that's exactly what he was. Nasty and condescending, constantly yelling. And honestly, I thought you were supposed to compromise in a marriage. But if I then decide, okay, let's go through the fridge, for example, and clean it out, he would then go, oh, I don't want that sauce thrown away, and then he would storm out if it's gone. He has broken things in the apartment just because he was in a fit of rage. I have struggled with avoidance and discouragement around difficult tasks like begging for jobs and completing back taxes. I have asked for his help in the way that I actually can do them, and he did a little bit in the past, but complained loudly about how much it sucked. But I mean, it's taxes, what do you expect? And honestly, that took hours of begging. Before that, he would just buy fancy file boxes and throw them in the middle of the floor and shame me. He also has a history of not filing his taxes before we met, so there is definitely some projection going on there. So every time we talk, after about 5 minutes, he starts shaming me and saying, "This is who you are," despite the fact that I have been actively trying to heal with trauma therapy. I tried to ask him to kindly explain what his needs were, room by room, but he just keeps saying, "Oh, you can't do it." Once he threw away my bedroom TV after I was crying with him not to throw it away. In fact, he would throw away a lot of my things that I enjoyed under the guise of, "Oh, I'm just recycling." There are a plethora of examples that come just from this alone. I personally believe that he fits the covert narcissist stuff on the internet. Perfect, humble employee. He's a servant-like person when it comes to his friends, only has friends from high school, but he ends up being a totally different person at home. He is also incredibly sensitive. He screams if there's some kind of background noise while he's driving, or if there's any kind of perfume while he's driving. He has horrible road rage, and he just freaks out over the smallest things. For a year, he has threatened to get a lawyer and get a divorce, but hasn't done it. He just goes to work, goes to his parents' house, and watches TV and eats. His family hasn't checked in with me at all. It's like they don't even care that I've been left alone. His family never discusses issues. They just talk about politics all the time instead of discussing family stuff. It's very superficial. Now he is condescending and refusing to help me with rent. I am not capable of handling a move right now due to multiple stressors in my life. What should I do next? I do think he is dealing with some form of mental illness, but when I even suggest that I say that, he freaks out saying, "How dare you suggest I have a mental illness? I'm me and this is who I am. You are the problem." I really would like my husband to go to therapy, grow up, and learn to compromise, but I'm not sure what to do. It does not sound like this is a healthy relationship in the slightest. And based on what you've described, this guy is not making improvement or in any way, shape, or form showing that he cares about you. I mean, you have both been separated for a year, and if you really think he's going to be coming back, then I think you're joking. Like, this marriage, in my opinion, just from the outside looking in, it sounds like it's done. Either way, I really hope you find the relief that you're looking for, and hopefully your marriage will work out for the best if your husband is willing, but based on what you're describing, I just don't see that happening. Should I show my ex the evidence I have that proves that she cheated on me so that she'll stop denying it? My ex and I broke up about 2 months ago. We dated for about 5 years and lived together for 3. We had a pretty good relationship right up until the end. Ever since we broke up though, she has been treating me as if I'm the worst person on the planet, despite me assisting her with bills, being kind, and beyond understanding. It's as if all of the great times that we had are non-existent to her. Well, as it turns out, she started dating her boss a week before we broke up. Once I saw this, I did some digging and found out that she had had been cheating on me with her boss for a few months before we ended up breaking up. She adamantly denies it, but I have several pieces of evidence that practically proves that she was, at the very least, emotionally cheating on me with her boss. I'm so tired of her denying this that I just want to show her the piece of evidence I have to show her that I know that she betrayed my trust and betrayed our relationship. Should I show her the piece of evidence I have against her that proves once and for all that yes, she did cheat on me, also that she can stop denying it and accept that she did this? Or should I just let her forever wonder what I have that proves that she cheated? What should I do? If you've already broken up with her, I don't know if there's much else you can do. I know you're probably very upset with this situation, and obviously it's still raw. Like, I'd be pretty upset too if my girlfriend cheated on me and I had concrete evidence that they were absolutely denying. That would drive me crazy personally. So I totally understand where you're coming from there. I think another thing you need to remember is that she does not care about you. She's literally not thinking about your situation ever. She moved on instantly, it sounds like. You spent like 5 years together and lived together for 3. And if she really did cheat on you several months before you guys broke up, then honestly, she checked out a long time ago. It seems like you really want to share this information with her and show this evidence as some way of proving her wrong, but it honestly begs the question, is this lady even worth it? Like, she doesn't care about you and she's not going to feel guilty about this situation. And I don't think anything you can or would do would make her feel guilty about the way she betrayed you. I think your best bet is just to focus on yourself and break contact if that's possible. It is literally doing nothing for you as well as your own well-being by holding on to this and trying to have some kind of revenge, if you will, which I don't think that's what you're trying to do, obviously, but I do see your perspective of being incredibly hurt and trying to prove once and for all, hey, you broke us up, not me. So I wish you the best of luck with whatever you decide to do, and hopefully you're able to get away from this lady who ruined your relationship, because you can honestly do so much better than her. I did another woman's makeup and got scammed out of them paying me, and when I tried to get the money from them later, they threatened to call the police. Before COVID, I was a makeup artist that did looks for events ranging from prom to weddings. I still do makeup for myself regularly, but nowadays I rarely do event makeup for others. I still do take requests, but I need plenty of notice as my work schedule has been really wonky lately. Well, 3 years ago, a mutual friend requested that I do her prom makeup. Since I was so new, I wasn't charging a lot. It truly was a hobby, and I did make money on it. I told her, okay, that'll be $25. She agreed, but with some hesitation. I did not require a down payment before the appointment, as I had no issues before. The day of, her mom told me, "We had bills to pay. We'll get you next week." I understood and left it at that. I honestly should not have been so trusting, but I had never been scammed before. It didn't seem possible. A week passed by, and I sent a reminder that I still needed payment from them, and her mother went off on me, told me to stop harassing them, and that real people have real problems, and not everyone can afford to get their makeup done. She then mentioned calling the police if I tried nagging her again. Eventually, I just dropped it, because in the grand scheme of things, $25 just wasn't worth the fight. Months pass by, and October hits. I was in between jobs, and this girl hits me up again to do her makeup for homecoming. I tell her I'll do it, but I double the cost and ask for $20 down payment, non-refundable. She agreed, and I thought, okay, at least if she cancels, I have this. The time approaches when I'm supposed to leave my house, and I message her to verify. And lo and behold, she had booked someone else and didn't tell me until I asked 30 minutes before our appointment. I was disappointed, but honestly, not surprised. I decided that was it, and I was never going to work with her ever again. She then had the audacity to tell everyone I was threatening her family, and I was pressing charges. I haven't heard from her in over 2 years now, but I did hear through the grapevine that she wanted my services again. Well, as you can guess, that is absolutely not going to happen. That is such a terrible feeling to have somebody completely play you like that, where you provide some kind of service for them, they say they're going to pay you later, and then they never pay you. Like, that's such a toxic thing to do. And that is honestly why people have down payments ahead of time, so they can be like, okay, if you don't do it, I still get something out of this. Because I'm sure that people scam people like this all the time, so it's better to get something out of your time than nothing. And to be honest, I'm really surprised that this original poster even agreed to have a second time with this lady. If I was her, I would have let the first time be a solid sign of what the second time's going to be like. And lo and behold, it did end up being like that. But if anything, at least you got $20 out of it, and you only lost $5 overall, which in the grand scheme of this situation is not too bad. At least the $5 can be some kind of tax towards your own wisdom, knowing that you will never let anybody take advantage of you like that ever again. My entitled mother-in-law didn't want to quarantine quarantine and ended up giving my husband COVID. I need to vent. My mother-in-law fell sick with COVID last week. My husband, kids, and I were on vacation in a rental home. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were supposed to join us on Friday and take over the house for the next week. We were planning to go home on Saturday night. After testing positive, my mother-in-law called us and said she wouldn't be coming and that my sister-in-law would be coming instead. So we make arrangements with my sister-in-law and enjoy the rest of our stay. She would be coming on Monday, so the house would be empty on Sunday. On Friday night, after our kids went to bed, my mother-in-law called my husband to tell him she changed her mind and that she and my father-in-law were on their way and would be arriving in an hour. She didn't want the house to be empty over the weekend because that would be a waste of money, so she decided to come anyway. She was supposed to be quarantined until Monday. I had COVID 3 weeks ago. My kids, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my husband did not. Of course, we were not happy with her coming. We figured we couldn't ask my parents-in-law to leave, given the fact that, strictly speaking, they were the ones renting the home for the weekend and the week to come. So we decided to cut our trip short and go home Saturday early in the morning. We demanded her to wear a mask in the house and to stay away from the kids. She was reluctant at first, and she absolutely did not stay away from the kids. And to say I was furious would be an understatement. We left the first thing in the morning. Well, my husband tested positive tonight. We are off work for 2 more weeks, and thanks to my irresponsible mother-in-law, my kids will probably get ill and the rest of our vacation will be ruined. And honestly, I could not be more angry. How selfish can you possibly be? You test positive for COVID, you're told, hey, quarantine and stay away from my family, only to then turn around and be like, we're coming anyways. Like, does she not care about the family members that they're going to be seeing? Obviously not, otherwise they would have stayed home and they would have worn a mask. And how do you disobey the parents' orders to say, hey, stay away from my kids? Do they want these kids to get sick and possibly get hurt? Like, what is wrong with these people? It's moments like this where you really need to stop and think about other people for once. It's incredibly inappropriate to just say, hey, I'm gonna go over to this house and get everybody sick, because that's exactly what they did. And you can almost guarantee that if the husband tested positive for COVID, those kids are surely gonna test positive as well. And that in and of itself is going to be miserable for everybody in that home, because when kids get sick, it is a tragedy. They can't shake it off and have an easy time like adults would most of the time. When a kid gets sick, they don't know how to communicate about it and are generally unable to just deal with it and function normally. So I really feel bad for this family. Hopefully those kids don't get COVID, and hopefully the husband's able to recover fast, and that it's just mild symptoms and nothing serious. It baffles me how people forget that COVID is still dangerous to some people. There's still some people out there that, regardless of vaccination status, can still get really sick from this. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully they're able to recover quickly, and next time you can bet for sure that this family will probably not want to have anything to do with these entitled in-laws who clearly only think about themselves. After 5 years, my girlfriend still hasn't gotten her life together, and honestly at this point, I feel trapped. How long can you be supportive of someone that just never figures it out and ultimately becomes a dependent? A little background. I'm a 36-year-old male, and I've been working in the arts for the last 10 years, first as a freelancer and then full-time for a successful artist. I met my girlfriend, who's 35 years old, 5 years ago on a job while I was still freelancing, and at the time she was too. She was working in Department X, but only as a side hustle, so she could eventually end up in Department Y. As lots of people in the arts know, freelancing and job insecurity is basically a way of life. So out of the gate, I figure she was just struggling in the same way I was, or any of my friends were. But ultimately, her situation was different. She had been dabbling in half a dozen other careers and jobs over the years, and none of them worked out. Between insecurities around her dyslexia and pain from chronic back issues, jobs were difficult, and she often gravitated towards those that require a lot of self-initiative and self-promotion. She's never given in to taking just any old job because she wanted to hold out for something she was passionate about, which has left her with no resume or real work experience to speak of. She's been able to do this because she's living at the home she grew up in with her sister. Her parents no longer live there, so she basically has no rent or bills to speak of. At first, I paid for a few things when she'd go a stretch without work, only for her back pain to take a turn for the worse, and I had to pay even more. I wanted to be there for her and allow her the chance to try this or that until she got on her feet with a career, but it just never seemed to happen. Since the pandemic, things have just gotten worse. She babysat for a few months, but her back pain took another turn for the worse, and she needed surgery. She can't figure out what exactly exactly she wants to do, so she decided she needs a career counselor. This has led to months of supposed homework with no visible progress to speak of. She wasn't applying for jobs because she felt like she couldn't write a resume. After turning to a friend to help her, it still took a couple of weeks just to get a resume done. Then she chooses jobs that obviously require a substantial background that she just doesn't have. She spends her day busying herself with house chores, mostly as a way, in her view, to contribute since she doesn't pay for things, as well as doing physical therapy, medications, and this career guidance homework. I just feel like I've been carrying her as a supportive and understanding partner for a long time now. If I worked in finances and made 6 figures annually, then maybe I wouldn't care. There are plenty of couples and relationships where only one partner works, but I make an average salary in one of the most expensive cities in the United States, and I have no idea how we would ultimately pay for a wedding, buy a home, raise kids, only with 2 incomes. And while I have a well-paying, stable job right now, it's working on staff for an artist. If I ever wanted to leave this job to pursue my own work or another job, God knows I wouldn't be making enough. It leaves me feeling trapped, and when I stop to think about how much time I've lost, I spiral into depression. Part of me feels like I should just leave, but at the same time, I love her and want to see her figure it out, but I don't think she ever will. What should I do? I think first and foremost, you gotta understand that you are not trapped. You still have so much time to figure things out. She has a steady place to live, and there are other people that can support her. So honestly, if you did walk away for whatever reason, even though that's not what I'm saying you should do, she would not be without help. I think honestly, you just need to change your mindset here. If you're genuinely unhappy in this relationship, then that's one thing. But if you feel lost and if you feel depressed and you feel like you've lost so much time, then I think you need to really reflect on how much you do love your girlfriend. You have been there for her through thick and thin for 5 years, all trying to help her get her life together. And you obviously care for each other, otherwise this would not have worked even for 6 months. 5 years is a long time, and I honestly don't think you've lost anything by trying. You took a risk that not a lot of people would want to do. You took a risky career path in the efforts to try and make something that you enjoy, which in my opinion is way better than sitting behind a desk all day. So good for you in that regards. And yeah, you're right, freelance work is really scary and really hard. You never know when your next paycheck's gonna come in, and it can be incredibly stressful. But at least you're trying to live your dreams, both of you. And yeah, it doesn't sound like your girlfriend has things figured out, but sometimes starting from the ground up and figuring out what you do have will hopefully help you set things up for the future. I think you really do need to have an honest conversation with your partner and try to figure out overall what you both want out of this relationship, because it seems like you got 2 options. You can either have a partner in this or a dependent. And I think honestly, from what you've described, you want a partner in life and not someone you're just gonna have to babysit and pay for stuff for the rest of your life. So I wish you the best of luck, and I hope things work out for you. I feel like a consolation prize to my boyfriend, and I'm not sure if I'm overreacting. My boyfriend is 26 years old and I'm 24, and we have been dating for 7 months. For the most part, things have been going well. I really love him. He's patient and kind with me, even when I feel like I don't deserve it. His best friend is a lesbian in her late 20s that lives 6 hours away. They met in college and are into a lot of the same things. I know if she was straight, they would be dating. And if it was just left at that, I'd be okay with it. The problem is that my boyfriend won't stop talking about her in concerning ways. Since the first couple of months I started dating him, he's told me multiple times how hot and attractive he finds her, asking me not to fall in love with her when I meet her, half jokingly, and how he's always wanted to spend some quality time with her, if you know what I mean. To add to the above, he also wears a bracelet she gave him 24/7. Most recently, and what has really been the final straw for me, was that he told me that when he's staying at her place or they share a hotel room, she walks around very indecent without a care in the world. He told me this as if to say, well, isn't it so cool that she trusts me so much? Almost implying that I should be okay with this. But I don't find it cool, and I'm progressively getting more uncomfortable with their relationship. She is perfect for him in every way, from their shared interests all the way to her being incredibly attractive. They just mesh really well. They'll travel to see shows together, go to festivals, and he'll stay at her place when he visits her city. Meanwhile, I'm just lame, okay looking, even though he compliments me all the time. I don't look anything like her or nearly as good as her, and I'm not into his music and partying lifestyle. I honestly feel ridiculous for being worried about a lesbian who lives 6 hours away and has a girlfriend at that. I've also never met her, and I know it's really not her fault, though I do find it really weird that she'll just casually be very indecent around him in such a casual, forward manner. I'm thankful she lives far away too, too, because I would definitely feel like a third wheel if she lived in our city. I feel like he really loves her, but is settling for me because I will spend quality time with him. But I also feel like I'm being the crazy, controlling girlfriend, being overly upset about this. Am I being unreasonable for questioning our relationship? What should I do? I think there's quite a few red flags in here that I would definitely be concerned about, especially with how much and how often he's saying how attractive he finds his friend. Like, that's incredibly disrespectful towards you. Not to mention the fact that she is obviously and flagrantly indecent around him, and that he's completely okay with this. Like, that seems super sketchy to me. I honestly don't think you're being the crazy, stereotypical, controlling girlfriend. I think if anything, you really should be worried about your boyfriend and his boundaries. Why would he allow such weird situations to occur in his life at your detriment? And yeah, you're not there, but the fact that your boyfriend is so willingly okay with his best friend being incredibly indecent, if you know what I mean, just seems like a really big red flag to me. I would sit down with your boyfriend and have a serious conversation with him and say, hey, you are making me very uncomfortable with the way you're talking about your best friend. And I would explain to him entirely how you feel in this regard. It seems like in many ways he's being very manipulative, especially by stating like, oh, it's so cool she trusts me to be super indecent around me. Like, that's really manipulative in my opinion, and he's looking for validation of some kind. That's my take at least. So yeah, I would take a very serious look at your relationship with your boyfriend, because I don't think you're being crazy for being concerned about this situation at all. Because if I was in your shoes, I'd be concerned about the same thing as well. My boyfriend's family loves his ex-girlfriend, and they have a really close relationship with her, and honestly, I don't know what to do about it. I have been dating my boyfriend for a year now. Quick recap on our relationship. We work together, and for several months, our relationship was more of a situationship. I have never met his parents or anyone from his family, and he has never met mine. This didn't really bother me until now. I found out recently that his ex-girlfriend, whom he dated for 9 years, is still very close with his parents. She goes to brunch with his mom frequently and have heart-to-heart conversations with his dad. She is also very close with his siblings. It is important to point out that the ex-girlfriend lived with them for some time. The family took her in when they were in high school. I also found out in passing conversation with my boyfriend that the ex-girlfriend is going through a breakup right now, and his mom told him to reach out to her because she is really sad apparently. I was aware of the existence of this ex-girlfriend and that she lived with him and his family, but I didn't realize that she was still very close with his family. Yesterday, I went into a deep anxiety spiral, and I ended up stalking this ex-girlfriend on Instagram. She frequently comes over to his parents' house, and the mom comments on her posts a lot. I also found out that she lives less than 3 miles away from him, and they go to the same gym. I told him how this makes me very uncomfortable, but he assured me that he won't reach out to her. I have no reason not to trust him, but at the same time, it seems that she is so embedded in their lives, and it makes me so insecure that his parents love her. So basically, I need advice. I am a very anxious person in general, and this situation is pushing me off the edge. I really like him, but I don't love him yet. I am imagining our future together, and if we do end up being a lot more serious or potentially endgame, I don't think I can handle the closeness of the ex-girlfriend and his parents. I am too insecure and sensitive for this. I am not sure if this is petty, but I thought of breaking up with him over this. He obviously did not do anything wrong, but I really don't want to get hurt. This is honestly just a little too much for me. What should I do? Well, I don't think you should break up with your boyfriend just because of an ex-girlfriend. They dated for 9 years, and she lived with his parents. How are you so surprised that they're so close? They probably view her as a daughter at this point. Even if they broke things off between the two of them, I think you really need to hold on to the fact that your boyfriend has made it very clear that you are his girlfriend, and that this ex-girlfriend is exactly that, an ex-girlfriend. Your anxiety is getting in the way of a good thing. Your boyfriend obviously loves you and has told you straight up, no, I'm not going to message my ex-girlfriend, even if she's sad. Also, you've been dating this person for a full year and you still can't say that you love him? I think you really need to take a deep look at this relationship and see if this is something that you even want in the first place. It seems like the only problem here is the fact that he has an ex-girlfriend who's just really close with the family. It's not like she's made any moves on him that you've made any mention of, and it's not like they've made any negative comments about you at all. It just seems like they're very close with a woman who, yes, they lived with for a very long time. You also have to remember that he spent the formative years of his life dating this girl, from 16 years old all the way up until 5 years years ago, as the original poster puts it. So I really wouldn't get bent out of shape because you're kind of the odd man sitting out. He chose you. You've got to remember that. He wants to date you. He loves you, even if you don't feel the same way. So I don't think you should give up on your relationship all because this ex-girlfriend is still involved in their life, when in fact those parents and his siblings probably see her as a sibling or a daughter in their eyes. And that's fine as long as it stays in that regard. And I think this would only be a problem if this ex-girlfriend tries to make a move at your boyfriend. Then I would be upset. But until then, I think you're just being way too hard on yourself and you're letting your anxiety ruin your relationship. Should I send a text to my ex after having no communication for 3 years? I dated this girl in high school for my junior and senior year. It was a pretty good relationship overall, and I think we both enjoyed being with each other. As a disclaimer, we still fought and we were off and on every now and again, but not very often. And this doesn't seem to me to be uncommon when dating that young. In any case, towards the end of my senior year, we had more issues than previously, and it could have been the fact that I was leaving 11 hours away to a college, and she was going to stay in high school for another year. But I knew she was seriously considering the college I was going to, however, and I knew that it wouldn't have been her choice had she chosen to follow me, which was a point of contention for me. So we had a lot of issues leading up to the ending of that year, and eventually broke up. We kept talking for about another month after I graduated, but we couldn't work through our issues from the relationship and try to be friends. So the last thing I remember her telling me was, "I'm done." Those words have stuck with me for such a long time, and it hurts even now to write this 3 years after the fact. When I got to college, my older brother, who already went to the same college, introduced me to fraternity life, and it was exactly as you'd expect it. So it was easy to forget about her, and I thought I'd moved on. I kept trying to date other girls, and thoughts of her never really did come into my head. But the dating never worked out, and not one moved on into the relationship stage. So I've stayed single since her. I've heard through mutual friends that she moved on and was dating someone new 3 months after she broke up with me. Not to be the one that cast the first stone, but just to show the difference between her situation and mine. So fast forward to more recently, when I started to really have to focus on my mechanical engineering degree, meaning studying a lot more and just generally being more alone. That's when I started to think about her again, just about reaching out or something, with her being someone that I gave a substantial amount of my formative years to. Truthfully, I don't know what the purpose of doing so would be, however. I don't know if it is me trying to rekindle anything or to just try and be friends again, but just thinking about reaching out. Then about a week ago, completely out of the blue, while working, someone close to me texted me saying I should reach out to her. I had never mentioned to anybody about wanting to talk to her, and I had not talked to this person who just texted me about my previous girlfriend in years. So to say that it shocked me when I received this text message would be an understatement. The friend that texted me out of the blue said that he just woke up that day and felt that he should tell me to specifically talk to her. Since then, all I have actually done is follow her on social media, and she hasn't followed me back. I was hoping that if she didn't, it would give me some solace, but it just seems to be too much of a coincidence for me to leave this at that, especially with someone very close to me telling me I should talk to her. And with the present living situation I find myself in, I don't think I'm that far from her. Maybe a 1 or 2 hour drive, which honestly makes the situation all the more coincidental. So what do you think? Should I send her a text message? What should I do? I think it's been 3 years, so I don't think there's really anything wrong with sending a text message to your ex. As long as you go into this with no expectation of anything happening and just sending a text to try and catch up, it could very well be okay. People can grow up very quickly over 3 years, so a lot of things probably have changed in both of your lives that would be worth catching up on. And while I highly doubt this will blossom into any kind of relationship that you can expect, I think at the bare minimum, this could be a way of getting back together and at least having some kind of friendship again. Because you said it best, you spent a lot of your formative years spending time with this woman, so it wouldn't hurt to at least try and reach out. My boyfriend dumped me, only to then threaten to install Tinder if I didn't come over and meet with him. I am a 28-year-old female and I got dumped by my ex-boyfriend who's 38 years old. I went no contact, yet he keeps reaching out to me. Why is my ex-boyfriend trying to call and contact me 11 days after he dumped me? I was the one to get dumped. It absolutely broke my heart and I cried almost every day. I went on no contact and blocked him everywhere. He tries to reach out to me via several different means. I always ignore his attempts, and I have never responded since the breakup. At first, he was angry and called me childish, that I even blocked him everywhere in the first place. He threatened to install Tinder if I didn't come over. A few days ago, I took my personal belongings from his place during his absence. I made sure he was not there, otherwise I would have been an absolute wreck. Ever since then, he keeps trying to reach out to me. Now, before anyone draws the wrong conclusion, I took my personal items only. I did not leave his apartment in a state of mess, and no, I did not wreck his apartment either. In all honesty, this guy probably already did install Tinder, and he's just not getting the response he wanted. He's literally doing this just so he can get a response. He's trying to dig at you to try and drag you back in. This is 100% manipulation. He's getting frustrated because he doesn't have anybody else he can toss around like he did to you, and so he's desperately trying to bring you back in and reel you back into his life. And trust me when I say this, you do not want that. This guy is a low-life piece of garbage. He is almost in his 40s, and this is how he's acting? Absolutely disgusting. You can do so much better than this. And honestly, he dumped you. He can go ahead and install Tinder. Your best thing to do is to simply move on. There are so many better fish in the sea, it's not even funny. So getting away from someone who's gonna act like this at nearly 40 years old is probably for the better. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.